Hi guys, welcome to Midnight Anime Library. Transmigrated to One Piece with the Ability Stealing System Part 4. This is a restaurant, right? A man wearing a gray coat, holding a pistol, of medium build with unkempt hair and beard, and thick lips, stumbled unsteadily into the baratai. He slumped down at an empty table, propping his legs up on it as if the simple action took all his remaining strength. Anything? Just get me something to eat, Jin rasped weakly. Esteemed customer, this establishment doesn't welcome freeloaders. Do you have money, sir? Patty approached Jin, rubbing his hands together greedily, plastering on an exaggerated smile. If this is a restaurant, then hurry up and bring the food. Or do you want a taste of lead? Jin snarled, his face grim, leveling his pistol at Patty. No money, huh? Patty's smile vanished instantly. Wham! Patty crossed his fists and slammed them down, smashing Jin and the table together. If you're not a customer, then get the hell out of here. He then proceeded to brutally kick and stomp on Jin. The surrounding customers cheered, seeing one of the restaurant's chefs beat up a member of the infamous Krieg pirates. I've had enough. What the hell is wrong with this restaurant? I'm never coming back here. Full Body, still on the floor, watched in terror as Jin, a man even he feared, was pummeled by a mere chef. Cold sweat drenched his forehead. He scrambled towards the exit. But as he reached the doorway, Full Body felt an immense pressure lock onto him again. He swallowed hard. It was coming from Sky Sovereign Rowen. Full Body immediately emptied his pockets, leaving all his money behind, then practically crawled out of the restaurant as fast as he could. Wow, this guy was actually pretty loaded, Nami commented, scooping up the money with a sweet smile. You guys have to pay your own way, though. I only covered mine and Rowen's. Nami then declared, looking pointedly at Zoro and Usopp. Ha! Zoro and Usopp, who had been watching the commotion, froze. Didn't Rowen basically get that money for them? How did it become Nami's? But seeing Rowen smiling indulgently beside Nami, Zoro and Usopp decided it was probably best to figure out how to pay their own bills. Rowen watched Nami with an affectionate smile. He knew Nami often talked tough about money, but when it truly mattered, she would likely still cover for them. Luffy noticed the chef with the curly eyebrows, Sanji, quietly heading towards the back kitchen alone. Alright folks, please continue enjoying your meals. Having finished beating Jin, Patty plastered his exaggerated smile back on, earning another round of applause from the patrons. He then dragged Jin out the back door and tossed him onto the outer deck. Don't let me see you again. Patty sneered, slamming the door shut. Hey! Are you hungry? Luffy called out from the second floor railing, looking down at Jin lying weakly on the deck. Shut up! I'm not hungry. Jin retorted weakly, still clinging to his pride despite his condition. But his growling stomach betrayed him instantly. Click! The back door opened again. Sanji emerged, carrying a plate of fried rice, which he placed gently in front of Jin. Eat up, Sanji said softly, lighting a cigarette and looking up at the sky, avoiding looking directly at Jin's pathetic state. Take it away. I don't accept charity. Jin stared at the fragrant fried rice, swallowing hard despite his words. Whether you eat it or not is your decision. But to me, anyone who's hungry is a customer, Sanji stated, exhaling a puff of smoke. No one knows better than me how terrifying it is to be stranded at sea without food or water, Sanji murmured, his eyes clouded with complex memories. He and Zeph, the owner, who was a pirate back then, had once been shipwrecked together on a barren rock, surviving for 48 days before rescue. No one understood the horror of starvation better than Sanji. That experience had forged his core. Principle: anyone who was hungry, regardless of who they were, was a customer deserving of a meal. Grudges could be settled after everyone had eaten. I understand if you refuse to eat out of pride. But if you eat this, you'll live, Sanji said, turning to look at Jin, a slight curve to his lips. The next moment, Jin grabbed the plate and began devouring the food ravenously. Delicious. So delicious. I thought I was really going to die. Jin sobbed, tears mixing with the food as he ate. Best you've ever had, right? Sanji asked, a genuine smile gracing his lips. Whenever Sanji saw someone starving eat his food, it reminded him of the overwhelming emotion he felt when he ate his first meal after being rescued, the taste of hope, the taste of life itself. Click. Found a suitable cook? Luffy. Just then, Rowen pushed open the door and walked over to Luffy's side, smiling as he looked down at the scene. Shishishi. Yep. Found a great cook. Luffy grinned back. Hey. Cook. Join my pirate crew and be our cook. Luffy then yelled down cheerfully at Sanji. Huh? Sanji looked up, momentarily bewildered upon seeing Luffy. You're the man with that beautiful lady, so you're a pirate? Sanji's gaze then shifted to Rowen beside Luffy, his expression turning serious. That's right. Name's Rowen. Luffy's comrade. How about it? Want to join us? Rowen asked Sanji with a smile. Rowen watched Sanji. His principle, that anyone hungry is a customer, even a potential enemy who might bring greater danger, must be fed first. Rowen didn't find it foolish at all. He admired it. The most important duty of a chef is to feed people. That is the fundamental calling of the position. Feeding anyone who was hungry, even strangers, even potential enemies, that was Sanji's unique core principle. Everyone who survived on these seas had their own principles, their own lines they wouldn't cross. Some might seem foolish to others, but by adhering steadfastly to one's own nature, one could become truly strong. Besides, Rowen, having come from Japan where food held immense significance, understood this well. Although he hadn't lived through the eras of widespread famine, resources weren't always abundant during his childhood either. Getting to eat delicious food he craved was an occasional luxury. And the deep-seated cultural importance of ensuring everyone was fed seemed almost ingrained in the DNA of people from his homeland. When meeting someone familiar, the first question after initial greetings was always, "Have you eaten?" If not, then eating came first. Even if facing a major crisis, eating first was essential. Even if preparing to fight to the death, both sides should eat first. Just as Luffy often yelled in the original story, "If you're hungry, you eat." Rowen? That name sounds familiar, Sanji murmured upon hearing Rowen's name, thinking aloud. He seemed to recall some customers discussing that name recently. But for Sanji, his interests lay solely in beautiful women and cooking. He hadn't paid much attention at the time, and Rowen's potential other identities held no interest for him now. Compared to any other status Rowen might possess, what Sanji envied most was that Rowen had been chosen by that beautiful lady. I refuse, Sanji stated flatly, rejecting Luffy's invitation immediately. I refuse. Luffy yelled back, surprisingly even more vehemently than Sanji. Refuse what? Sanji looked utterly confused. I refuse your refusal. You're a good cook, so come be a pirate with me. Luffy declared seriously. Will you listen when someone's talking? Sanji snapped, transforming into a sharp-toothed angry state again. What is wrong with this straw-hatted kid's brain? You guys, you're pirates too? Why are you gathering comrades? Jin suddenly asked, painful memories seemingly surfacing as cold sweat broke out on his forehead. That's right. We're heading to the Grand Line. Luffy announced proudly, head held high. Jin's face turned deathly pale, even more so than when he was starving moments ago. Since you're still looking for a cook, your crew probably isn't large enough for the Grand Line yet, Jin stated suddenly. He's number 6, Luffy said, pointing at Sanji with a grin. Why are you including me? Sanji yelled, exasperated. I'm Jin, of the Krieg Pirates, Jin introduced himself formally. You guys don't seem like bad people. Let me give you some advice, it's best not to go to the Grand Line. You're still young, there's no need to rush. The Grand Line is just another sea, after all. You can be pirates anywhere, right? Jin looked earnestly at Luffy and Rowen. Went to the Grand Line and got your spirit broken, huh? Rowen observed, looking at Jin. It wasn't mockery, just pity. The Krieg pirates were incredibly unlucky. They had just entered the Grand Line only to immediately encounter one of the absolute pinnacles of combat strength in the world. Warlord of the Sea, world's greatest swordsman, Hawkeye's Dracul Mihawk. And for some unknown reason, a figure of Mihawk's caliber had chased them all the way back to the East Blue. Jin couldn't refute Rowen's words. He had been utterly terrified. That man wasn't human. You've been to the Grand Line? Do you know anything about it? Luffy asked Jin eagerly. No. We know nothing. We understand nothing. That's why it's so terrifying. Jin clutched his head in anguish. They hadn't even truly experienced the Grand Line before their massive fleet was annihilated by that single man. Whatever. I'm definitely going to the Grand Line anyway, Luffy said, seeing Jin's distress and deciding not to press further, offering a grin instead. Well, I just wanted to give you some advice, Jin sighed resignedly, then stood up. Well then, goodbye, Mr. Sanji. Thank you so much. You saved my life. That fried rice was truly the best meal I've ever eaten in my life. Can I come back again sometime? Jin hopped onto the small raft he'd arrived on, looking back at Sanji with a grateful smile. Anyone who's hungry is always welcome here, Sanji replied with a smile. Hey! Chore boy! Just then, a loud shout interrupted them. Old man! Luffy tensed up, sweating nervously as Zeph appeared behind them. Being indebted to someone made Luffy incredibly nervous around Zeph. I'm really sorry, Mr. Sanji. You'll probably get yelled at for feeding someone like me for free, Jin said apologetically to Sanji. What are you talking about? Sanji calmly picked up Jin's empty plate and spoon and tossed them into the sea. No evidence, no reason to get yelled at. Now get going, Jin, Sanji said with a smirk. Shishishi, Luffy grinned. He wanted Sanji on his ship more and more. Zeph simply watched coldly. His relationship with Sanji was like father and son, and as chefs, they shared the same core principle. He wouldn't get angry just because Sanji fed a starving pirate for free. That damn brat Sanji, he's just trying to ease the pirate's conscience. Try not to get caught by the Marines again, Jin, Sanji called out with a smile as Jin unfurled his sail, preparing to leave. Thank you so much, Mr. Sanji. I'll never forget your kindness. Jin knelt on his raft, performing a deep Dajiza bow towards Sanji. Then, his sail caught the wind, and he drifted away. Say. You got invited by them, right? Sanji. Why don't you just go off and be a pirate with them? We don't need you here anymore anyway, Zeph suddenly stated gruffly. Ha? What did you say, you damned old geezer? Sanji instantly bristled, frowning deeply. All right. We got permission. Now you can come be a pirate with us. Luffy exclaimed, overjoyed. I'll say it again. I'm not becoming any damn pirate. And I'm the sous chef of this restaurant, you old fart. Sanji yelled back, his eye twitching. Zeph didn't reply, merely glanced towards Rowen. The moment Zeph saw Rowen, he hadn't recognized him immediately. Photos were just photos, after all. Recognizing someone instantly from a picture alone wasn't always easy. But the moment he heard Rowen's name, Zeph knew. The new super rookie emerging from the East Blue, the user of Conqueror's Haki, Sky Sovereign Rowen. Although Zeph's own strength and experience, even having sailed the Grand Line for a year, didn't grant him full understanding of Conqueror's Haki, he remembered the era when he sailed. The seas were chaotic then, before the current balance of Marines, warlords, and emperors solidified. The older generation of powerhouses hadn't fully faded yet, and news and rumors circulated widely. The event that left the deepest impression on Zeph from that time was the legendary escape of the great pirate, Golden Lion Shiki. Rumor had it that Shiki possessed the power of Conqueror's Haki. If that was true, then the World Economic News Agency's assessment of this young man, that a future king of the seas was about to be born, made sense. A captain acknowledged by such a man, the seemingly foolish kid named Luffy must be someone special too. And although their interaction was brief, Zeph could tell Luffy was different from common thugs, he was a pirate with a dream. Entrusting Sanji to someone like that. Zeph felt relieved. Sanji shouldn't be chained here by guilt and gratitude, guilt over Zeph sacrificing his leg to give Sanji the remaining food when they were stranded, spending his youth accompanying an old man like him. Sanji should pursue his own dream. Only the Grand Line held the key to fulfilling Sanji's dream of finding the All Blue. No matter what you say, I'm staying at this restaurant as a cook. Until the day you die. Sanji yelled after arguing heatedly with Zeph. I won't die. I plan to live another 100 years, Zeph retorted, turning and walking back into the restaurant. Knowing Sanji's stubborn personality, Zeph understood his words wouldn't convince Sanji to leave. His statement was merely signaling to Luffy and Rowen, he wouldn't stand in the way of Sanji leaving. Whether they could actually recruit Sanji, that depended on their own abilities. Rowen watched Luffy relentlessly continue trying to persuade Sanji, then turned his gaze towards the sea. Jin's raft had gradually disappeared over the horizon. But Rowen knew soon Jin would return, bringing his captain, Don Krieg. And along with them would come that man. The world's greatest swordsman, Hawkeye's Dracula Mihawk. Not only does Zara want to find Mihawk. I have some business with him too. Rowan's lips curved into a knowing smile. Today, the fog was thick. When are we gonna set sail already? Are we really gonna be stuck here for a whole year? Usopp complained helplessly from the deck of the Mary. Who knows? Look, Rowen doesn't seem worried, Zoro commented nonchalantly, polishing Wado Ikemanji. Rowen. Think of something. Usopp pleaded, clasping his hands together as he looked at Rowen, who was leaning against the railing, eyes closed, enjoying the sea breeze. As captain, Luffy needs to solve the problems he causes himself. Besides, the cook hasn't officially joined yet, Rowen replied, opening his eyes and smiling at Usopp. Mihawk is coming. Rowen needed to seize every moment to enhance his haki using Board of the Sea, Apex Gold. For his own plans. Hearing Rowen's words, Usopp deflated like a punctured balloon. Heave-ho! Just then, Luffy emerged from the restaurant carrying a large pile of garbage. Hey, Luffy! When are we finally leaving? Usopp yelled immediately. Just wait a bit longer. I'm gonna go ask the old man again. Luffy called back, his head poking out from behind the mountain of trash he was carrying. Just after speaking, Luffy heard something and looked out towards the sea. Through the thick fog, a massive ship slowly emerged. A Black Panther figurehead adorned its bow, and its Jolly Roger featured a grinning skull flanked by hourglasses. This flag, no one in the East Blue didn't recognize it. It's the Krieg. Pirates. WY is the overlord of the East Blue here? The restaurant customers instantly erupted in panic. Hey! Patty! Krieg is really here. You'll drive him away, right? One of the chefs yelled at Patty, his face pale with sweat. WY. That's Don Krieg, the pirate admiral with 5,000 men under his command. Why would he come all this way just to avenge one subordinate? Patty clutched his head, remembering Jin whom he had beaten up earlier. Hey! This is bad. We gotta run. Usopp stared at the enormous galleon, clutching his head in terror. How can a ship be that huge? Nami gasped, equally stunned. But seeing Rowen step calmly in front of her, a warmth spread through Nami's chest, replacing her fear with a sense of security. Whoa! What a big ship! Luffy exclaimed, admiring the vessel. Think that Jin guy came back to repay your kindness? Luffy grinned at Sanji, who had come out upon hearing the commotion. I don't think so. But something strange, Sanji murmured, his eyes narrowing. Huh? Luffy looked confused. But the next moment, the colossal ship sailed completely out of the fog, revealing its full state to everyone. The ship is totally wrecked, Luffy observed, looking at the heavily damaged vessel. Doesn't look like cannon damage, but it doesn't look man-made either, Sanji analyzed, focusing on the most prominent damage near the center of the ship. Zoro, that gash, doesn't it look like it was made by a sword? Rowen asked, looking at the massive, clean horizontal slice across the ship's hull. A faint smile touched his lips, and his haki began to stir, almost boiling with anticipation. Made by a sword? Impossible. Zoro retorted instinctively. How could a sword possibly cut such a massive galleon in half? But looking closer, Zoro fell silent. That massive fissure, it truly did look like the mark left by a single, impossibly sharp blade. A swordsman capable of such a feat was. Remembering Johnny's words about rumors of the hawk-eyed man he sought being near here, Zoro gripped Wado Ikemanji tighter. Just then, two figures descended from the massive galleon. One was Jin, he was currently carrying a tall but extremely weakened figure. It was the so-called overlord of the East Blue, Don Krieg. Please, food and water. I have money, Krieg rasped weakly the moment he entered the restaurant. Upon learning Krieg hadn't eaten in days and was completely drained of strength, Patty, who had been terrified moments before, instantly changed his tune, yelling for Krieg to get out. Feeding a dangerous pirate like him could lead to disaster. But immediately after, Sanji emerged from the kitchen carrying a plate of fried rice, placing it before Krieg. Sanji demonstrated his principle through action, anyone hungry was his customer. However, after Krieg finished eating, wham! With a swift elbow strike, Krieg slammed Sanji hard in the throat, catching him completely off guard and sending him crashing to the floor. Captain! That wasn't what we agreed. Mr. Sanji saved my life. Jin cried out. Crack! Jin, trying to intervene, had his arm snapped instantly by Krieg. The restaurant customers screamed and fled in terror, but Krieg didn't stop them. The Baratai chefs, led by Patty, tried to subdue Krieg but were swiftly defeated. Prepare food for 100 men. My crew on board is starving. Krieg ordered coldly. Never. The Baratai chefs refused, naturally unwilling. But then, they saw Sanji, whom Krieg had knocked down, slowly get back up and head towards the kitchen. What are you doing, Sanji? Patty roared. I don't have time to chat. There are 100 meals to cook, Sanji replied calmly, wiping a trickle of blood from the corner of his mouth. Ah! The chefs menacingly raised their sharp kitchen knives, pointing them at Sanji. Are you a spy for the Krieg pirates, Sanji? One chef yelled accusingly. I know he's a hopeless bastard. But I'm a cook. If someone's hungry, I feed them. Nothing else matters. Even if they attack this place afterward, the ones I fight will be well-fed bastards. Sanji stated flatly. Here. This should be enough for 100 men. Just as Sanji stood off against the other chefs, Zeph placed a massive bundle of food supplies on the floor. Your red leg, Zeph. Krieg recognized Zeph's identity, but immediately sneered. Hand over your logbook from your year sailing the Grand Line. With that logbook, I'll gather my men again, enter the Grand Line, take the One Piece, and rule these seas. Krieg demanded, glaring at Zeph. Hold on. I'm the one who's gonna be king of the pirates. Luffy, who had been watching quietly until now, immediately stepped forward upon hearing Krieg's claim, pointing angrily. Stay back, chore boy. You're no match for him. Patty yelled urgently. I can't back down from this. Not this. Luffy replied, a determined smile spreading across his face, a glimpse of his own kingly disposition. Brat. This isn't playtime, Krieg sneered condescendingly. I'm serious. Luffy retorted, standing his ground against Krieg. That's the Devil's Sea where my fleet of 5,000 men was annihilated in just 7 days. What makes a brat like you think you can survive there? Krieg roared. Since you want to die, maybe I should just finish you off right here. Krieg's shoulder armor opened, revealing hidden cannons. Luffy rolled up his sleeves, preparing to fight Krieg. Gonna fight him, Luffy? Zoro's voice came from nearby. Need some help, Luffy? Rowen asked, stepping forward, his lips curved slightly as he looked at Krieg. What exactly did this guy do to get Hawkeyes to chase him all the way here? Rowen. You guys came? Nah, it's fine. Just watch from there. Luffy replied, seeing Rowen and the others, patting his chest confidently. Anyone who claimed they'd be king of the pirates, Luffy would defeat them all. Krieg glanced at Zoro, then at Zeph. Finally, his gaze rested on Rowen. This guy, his presence feels completely different from that chore boy. Krieg's eye twitched slightly. He retracted his weapons. Best to let his men recover their strength first. Then, overwhelm these guys with sheer numbers. I'll deal with you later. I need to feed my men first, Krieg announced, hoisting the bundle of food supplies. Anyone who wants to run, now's your chance. My goal is the Grand Line logbook in this ship. Krieg turned and headed back towards his massive galleon outside. I'm so sorry, Mr. Sanji. I never wanted things to turn out like this. After Krieg left, Jin collapsed to his knees, apologizing profusely. You don't need to apologize, we chefs just act according to our own code, Zeph stated gruffly before Sanji could reply. Boss. Why are you still defending Sanji? Sanji's going to destroy this restaurant. If he hadn't fed Krieg, none of this would have happened. The other chefs yelled angrily. All of you, shut up. Do you know what it feels like to starve nearly to death? Think hard about what makes you different from Sanji as chefs. Zeph roared. The chefs looked bewildered, not understanding what Zeph meant. If you have time to complain, you'd better leave through the back door. Zeph pointed towards the rear exit. But this is our workplace. Besides, we have nowhere else to go. Though unsure of Zeph's meaning, the chefs still picked up their kitchen knives, ready to defend the Baratai. Hey! Didn't you see the captain's power? Why are you trying to get yourselves killed? Jin yelled desperately, breaking out in a cold sweat. Hey, Jin! Just then, Sanji walked over, kicking an overturned table upright with his foot. Let me make this clear. Feeding the hungry is my justice as a cook. However, from now on, they are well-fed invaders. Even if I beat down all your comrades later, don't you dare complain, Sanji stated, leaning against the table, looking up with a grim expression. If they try to take this restaurant, even you, I'll kill. Without hesitation. Jin swallowed hard, stunned by Sanji's cold resolve. Saving someone just to kill them later. You're really something else, Sanji, Patty scoffed, still unable to understand Sanji's actions. Shut up, crappy cook, Sanji retorted, lighting a cigarette. See? I told you this guy was cool. Luffy pointed at Sanji, grinning at Rowen and the others. Who cares if he's cool? We need to escape. Usopp's cowardly nature flared up, his legs shaking violently. Calm down, you idiot. Didn't you just get praised by Rowen back in Syrup Village? Weren't you just boasting about wanting to become a brave warrior of the sea? Zoro tapped Usopp's head lightly with his sword sheath. I'll fight too, of course. When it really counts. Usopp stammered, his legs trembling visibly, making his words sound utterly unconvincing. Then we'll be counting on you, Usopp, Rowen said, clapping Usopp reassuringly on the shoulder with a smile. When the chips were down, Usopp really didn't fold. I'll leave it to me. Hearing the pirate he admired so much Rowen say that, Usopp could only stand tall, tears welling up, and force the words out. Hey, Jin. What exactly did you guys run into in the Grand Line? Luffy asked, turning his attention back to Jin, who hadn't left yet. It happened on the 7th day after entering the Grand Line. Even now, thinking back. I can't tell if it was real or just a nightmare, Jin recounted, sweat pouring down his face uncontrollably. It's unbelievable. Just one man, almost wiped out our entire fleet of 50 ships. What? Everyone except Rowen gasped, their faces etched with shock. Even the normally unflappable Luffy's jaw dropped. The moment that man appeared, our ships started sinking, one after another. If we hadn't luckily run into a storm, even the main ship would have been completely sunk, Jin clutched his head, closing his eyes in agony. That man, with eyes that look like they could kill you just by looking. The hawk-eyed man. What did you say? Zoro's pupils constricted instantly, his reaction extreme. Someone capable of doing that. It must have been Hawkeye's, Zeph murmured gravely. Hawkeye's my hawk. Zoro gripped Wado Ikamanji tightly, his entire body trembling. You know him, Zoro? Luffy looked up at Zoro, surprised. This was the first time he had seen Zoro react so intensely. He's the man I set out to see to find, Zoro stated firmly. But, one man wiping out an entire fleet? Isn't that too exaggerated, Rowen? Usopp asked nervously, looking towards Rowen, the most knowledgeable among them, hoping for some reassurance. The Grand Line is just that kind of place. Anything can happen there, Rowen replied, the crimson-black light flickering faintly in his eyes. I think I've caught the ill die if I go to the Grand Line disease. Usopp clutched his chest dramatically. NGH. Luffy bowed his head, his body trembling. Hey, Luffy. You agree we shouldn't go there either, right? Usopp misinterpreted Luffy's reaction, thinking he'd found an ally. But then. That sounds so exciting. That's exactly how it should be. Luffy yelled, pumped up with excitement. Can't you consider your own safety for even a second? Usopp snapped, transforming into a sharp-toothed angry state. But now, my goal is firmly set on the Grand Line. Just like you said, Rowen, only on the Grand Line can I achieve my ambition. I can find that man, Hawkeye's, there, Zoro declared, a feral grin spreading across his face. Isn't that just foolish? Sanji suddenly interjected. For some reason, he found this moss-headed swordsman irritating. You guys seem like the type to die first, Sanji added dismissively. You might not be wrong, but calling it foolish is unnecessary, Zoro retorted, his mouth turning downwards. He found this curly-browed cook inexplicably annoying too. The moment I decided to become the world's greatest swordsman, I cast aside life and death. The only one who gets to call that decision foolish is me, Zoro stated firmly. Me too. Luffy immediately raised his hand. As a brave warrior of the sea, me too, of course. Usopp declared, trembling all over. You're lying again, aren't you? Zoro sighed, looking helplessly at Usopp. Seriously, so stupid, Sanji muttered, looking down. Oof. Zeph smirked slightly. He could see it, Sanji was starting to feel drawn to joining their crew. Do you people have any idea what's going on? Parked right outside is the flagship of that pirate fleet admiral, Don Krieg. Patty the chef suddenly roared. Is this really the time to be discussing dreams? Meanwhile, Don Krieg, having allowed his men to eat and regain their strength, was ordering them to seize the Baratai. The next second, slice. Krieg's massive galleon was cleanly sliced in two. The sinking of the huge ship created enormous waves, causing the Baratai to rock violently. He's here. Rowan's lips curved into a knowing smile. Stepping outside the restaurant, they saw a man sitting gracefully on a small, coffin-shaped boat. He actually chased us all the way from the Grand Line to here? Don Krieg roared in disbelief and fury, staring at the man. That man is... Zeph's pupils constricted. One of the 7 warlords of the sea. The world's greatest swordsman. Hawkeye's Dracul my hawk, Rowen stated calmly, his lips still curved in a smile. Check traits. My hawk traits, armament hockey, apex gold, observation hockey, apex gold, world's greatest swordsman, apex gold, conqueror's hockey, apex gold. Armament hockey, apex gold hockey that enhances one's own defensive and offensive capabilities, and allows the user to strike the substantial bodies of devil fruit users. Observation hockey, apex gold hockey that heightens the 5 senses, potentially developing into preternatural perception. Allows sensing the presence and emotional state of nearby living beings, and can be used to anticipate and evade danger. At its peak, allows brief glimpses into the future. World's greatest swordsman, apex gold needs no further explanation. On these seas, among all who wield a sword, he stands as the undisputed strongest. Conqueror's Haki, Apex Gold complete mastery of Conqueror's Haki infusion, possessing the power to reign as an emperor on these seas. This is a true pinnacle powerhouse of these seas. The traits possessed by the world's greatest swordsman, Hawkeye's Dracul Mihawk. Seeing the blinding array of gold, Rowen's lips curled into a smile tinged with excitement. Mihawk's strength was, without a doubt, Emperor/Admiral level. Just as expected, this man had fully mastered infused Conqueror's Haki. Later in the original story, the main reason Buggy managed to become an emperor was precisely because of this man standing before him. Mihawk was also the only member of an emperor's crew, Cross Guild, whose bounty surpassed that of the emperor, Buggy, himself. As for Crocodile, his significantly lower bounty later on clearly indicated that, in the eyes of the Marines, Crocodile's strength wasn't considered top tier, he hadn't reached the pinnacle level of the world's strongest. The Marines even explicitly stated Crocodile's high bounty was primarily due to acknowledgement of his strategic threat. Based on strength alone, even reaching the final stages, Crocodile wouldn't have warranted a bounty close to 1.9 billion. Essentially, the reason the Cross Guild in the original story was recognized as an emperor crew was solely because of Hawkeye's Dracul Mihawk. Without a emperor/admiral level powerhouse, no amount of luck would have allowed Buggy to become an emperor. To finally meet one of the absolute strongest individuals on these seas after coming to this world. Rowen felt the Conqueror's Haki within him stir, almost boiling with anticipation. Hawkeye's Mihawk. Zoro, who had quickly moved to Rowen's side, was visibly trembling. Not from fear, but from excitement and nervousness. After all, Zoro had only just set out to sea. He lacked the disposition and experience he would gain later. Facing the world's strongest, the very man he had set out to challenge, Zoro couldn't help but feel overwhelmingly tense. Rowen. I moved the ship to a safe spot. Nami called out, having maneuvered one of the smaller boats alongside the Barati's outer deck where Rowen stood. Thanks for your hard work, Rowen replied, suppressing the simmering Conqueror's Haki within him and offering Nami a smile. Nami, true to her developing reliance on Rowen, hadn't abandoned them like her original counterpart might have to face Arlong alone. Bastard! What grudge do we have with you? Why are you attacking us like this? At that moment, one of Don Krieg's pirates, completely breaking down, screamed hysterically at Mihawk. Just killing time, Mihawk replied nonchalantly. Don't screw with us, the pirate roared, raising two pistols and firing at Mihawk. With imperceptible speed, the black blade strapped to Mihawk's back, Yoru, was drawn. Despite being a massive sword, it moved with impossible grace in Mihawk's hands. Clink! Clink! The two bullets instantly ricocheted, their trajectories altered. Rowen's eyes narrowed. Mihawk's swordsmanship, unlike Zoro's powerful, wide-open style, was a perfect fusion of hardness and softness. Ordinary bullets without Haki infusion were like dust motes before Yoru, one of the 12 supreme grade swords, renowned as the world's strongest black blade. Especially when wielded by the world's greatest swordsman. Yet Mihawk hadn't simply cut the bullets, he had used the razor edge of his blade to deflect them, subtly changing their path without destroying them. This demonstrated absolute, pinpoint control over every inch of his blade. Capable of cleaving mountains, yet also deflecting bullets with finesse. Such mastery of both power and precision, in close combat, it would be an absolute nightmare for any other swordsman or fighter. Swordsmen, even great swordsmen, might launch terrifying flying slashes, but their true killing techniques lay in close-quarters combat. Haki and stamina were finite, even for Emperor/Admiral level fighters. Infusing massive amounts of Haki into wide-ranging flying slashes would be incredibly draining. This was likely why the slash Mihawk launched during the Summit War could be blocked by Diamond Jozu. It probably lacked significant Haki infusion and was merely a probing attack. Furthermore, flying slashes, being ranged attacks detached from the swordsman, inevitably lost some power compared to a direct strike from the blade itself. Witnessing Mihawk display such terrifying skill with just a casual flick of his wrist, Rowen pulled Nami behind him, the crimson-black light in his own eyes beginning to simmer intensely. But I aimed right at him, the pirate grunt stammered in disbelief. He deflected them. He used the edge of his sword to gently change the bullets' paths, Zoro stated gravely, stepping forward. Without further words, Zoro began walking towards Mihawk. "Hey! Who are you?" the pirate who had shot at Mihawk yelled. Click! Zoro drew Wado Ikemanji from its sheath at his waist. The sight of his 3 swords instantly drew the attention of everyone present. 3 swords? Could it be? One of Don Krieg's pirates murmured, breaking into a cold sweat. "I've never seen such a soft sword before," Zoro commented, looking at Mihawk, a feral grin spreading across his face. "A sword wielded solely with brute force lacks depth," Mihawk replied calmly, turning his gaze towards Zoro. "That ship. Did you cut it with this sword too?" Zoro asked, glancing at the massive galleon cleanly sliced in 2. "Indeed," Mihawk replied simply. "I see. So you really are the strongest." Zoro's grin widened with excitement. "I set out to sea, to meet you." Zoro untied the bandana from his arm and tied it around his head, signifying his intention to fight with his full strength. "Your goal?" Mihawk asked, showing a flicker of interest. "To be the strongest," Zoro declared, his own unique disposition radiating from his smile. "Oof. How foolish," Mihawk replied, a faint, almost imperceptible smile touching his lips. "You seem bored. Let's have a match." Zoro pointed Wado Ikemanji directly at Mihawk. "That guy." "It's Pirate Hunter Zoro," one of Krieg's pirates yelled. "So he's Zoro?" Sanji looked surprised. This moss-headed guy was the famous pirate hunter of the East Blue? Pirate hunter? Don Krieg narrowed his eyes. So that brat's crew has someone like this too. But the feeling he got from that other man was even stronger than Zoro. Krieg looked towards Rowen, cold sweat beginning to form on his brow again. What the hell? Why does this man feel even stronger now than he did just moments ago? Just standing there, the feeling of terrifying power was overwhelming. Especially when Krieg caught glimpses of the crimson-black light flickering in the man's eyes. Krieg instinctively lowered his head, unable to meet his gaze directly. How? Panting heavily, veins bulged on Krieg's forehead. He was the overlord of the East Blue. Yet looking at this man, he felt an absurd, instinctive sense of unworthiness, as if gazing up at something godly, something far beyond him. "A match? You pitiable weakling," Mihawk stated flatly. Shink! Without any discernible movement, Mihawk vanished from his coffin boat and reappeared directly in front of Zoro. "If you were a skilled swordsman, you would grasp the disparity in our strength even without crossing blades. Pointing your sword at me now, should I call it courage? Or mere ignorance?" Mihawk asked, his golden eyes devoid of emotion. "Ignorance, huh?" Zoro gripped Wado Ikemanji, his feral grin widening. "Maybe before meeting Rowen, I was somewhat ignorant. But now, I have some understanding of what this sea truly holds. Luffy. Rowen. Sorry about this. I'm acting on my own here. Before heading to the Grand Line, I have to test myself against this man," Zoro declared, his eyes blazing with wild determination as he looked towards Rowen and Luffy. "A path you chose yourself. Walk it well, Zoro," Rowen replied, a confident, powerful curve to his lips. "As captain, I support whatever my comrades decide. I'll be watching you right here, Zoro," Luffy yelled encouragingly. Rowen? Could he be that Sky Sovereign Rowen? Hearing Zoro call out the name, everyone's attention instantly focused on Rowen. Sky Sovereign Rowen? It really is him. Don Krieg's jaw clenched. He knew about the super rookie who had recently appeared in the East Blue, of course. But he never expected to meet him like this. He had initially assumed the title was just empty hype, but facing the man now, Krieg found he lacked even the courage to look him directly in the eye. Damn it! He was the overlord of the East Blue. Krieg gasped for breath, struggling to regain composure. Rowen? Mihawk's sharp, hawk-like eyes turned towards Rowen. Sensing the powerful aura faintly radiating from Rowen, ready to explode forth at any moment, Mihawk's own eyes narrowed slightly. Conqueror's Haki. Interesting. To encounter a man possessing Conqueror's Haki of this level, in the weakest sea. Then, Mihawk noticed Luffy's hat. That's Shanks's. I see. So, Shanks bet his arm on this boy? Mihawk's expression remained impassive, but ripples stirred within him. Shanks losing his arm in the East Blue had caused huge waves back in the New World. It was also a great personal regret for Mihawk. Shanks was primarily a left-handed swordsman. Losing that arm meant Mihawk lost the pleasure of sparring with his rival. Shanks had claimed back then that he'd bet his arm on the new era. He hadn't expected Shanks to bet it on such an unremarkable-looking boy. However, looking at the crimson-black light flickering in Rowan's eyes, Mihawk's gaze sharpened again. Acknowledged by a Conqueror's Haki user of this caliber, and backed by Shanks's bet. This boy's future is certainly worth anticipating. Well then. As a favor to Shanks, let's show this swordsman before me just how vast this sea truly is. Oh. With a disdainful sigh, Mihawk drew a tiny knife, barely larger than a fruit knife, from the cross pendant hanging on his chest. Zoro's face fell. Unlike foolish beasts, I do not use a cannon to hunt a rabbit. Apologies, but I don't seem to have anything smaller than this, Mihawk stated calmly. There's a limit to how much you can underestimate someone. Zoro roared, thoroughly enraged. Clenching Wado Ikemanji between his teeth and gripping a sword in each hand, he charged ferociously towards Mihawk. Three-sword style onigiri, demon slash. Clang. The next instant, Zoro's signature three-sword style technique was effortlessly blocked by Mihawk using only the small knife. Everyone present, except Rowen, was utterly stunned. The pirate hunter Zoro blocked by a tiny fruit knife? Can't move. What's happening? How can the gap be so vast? Sweat dripped continuously from Zoro's brow. He had only had one technique blocked, yet his body felt completely immobilized. Having learned about Haki from Rowen, Zoro had anticipated a tough fight against Mihawk, perhaps involving Haki. But he never imagined the difference in strength would be this immense. Forget Haki, the man hadn't even drawn a proper sword, just a small knife. The world's strongest can't be this far away. Zoro roared mentally, his composure shattering. He launched a frantic barrage of attacks at Mihawk. But his wild, disordered slashes were all parried with casual grace by Mihawk using only the small knife, as if taking a leisurely stroll. Soon, Zoro was completely toyed with by Mihawk until he was utterly exhausted. Weakling. What burden do you carry? What do you aspire to achieve through strength? Mihawk asked calmly, watching Zoro, completely drained but still swinging his swords feebly before finally collapsing from exhaustion. Calling Big Bro weak? You bastard. That man is our Big Bro. Seeing Zoro toyed with like this, Johnny and Yasaku couldn't hold back any longer. They were about to charge recklessly at Mihawk. But Luffy's rubber arms shot out, grabbing them and pinning them to the deck. Don't interfere. Johnny. Yasaku, this is Zoro's fight. Luffy gritted his teeth, veins bulging all over his body as he restrained them. Watch closely, a man like Zoro doesn't need pity, Rowen stated firmly, the crimson-black light of Conqueror's Haki almost visibly overflowing from his eyes. I absolutely cannot lose. Zoro's mind flashed with images, his promise to Kuina, his pact with Luffy, Rowen, and the others. His ambition to become the world's greatest swordsman. Toragari, Tiger Hunt. Zoro roared, mustering his last strength for another attack. Shink. The small knife pierced Zoro's chest. Why didn't you retreat? Did you wish for your heart to be pierced? Mihawk's eyes narrowed slightly. He had held back. Zoro only needed to step back slightly to avoid this wound. I don't know. I just felt that if I retreated, all the vows and promises I've ever made would vanish completely, Zoro replied, looking straight at Mihawk. Indeed. That is called defeat, Mihawk stated simply. Then I definitely can't retreat, Zoro grinned. You'd rather die than retreat? Mihawk's gaze intensified. Maybe, dying here would be better, Zoro replied, a smile reflecting his unwavering resolve. Such strength of heart. Rather than accept defeat, he chooses death? A flash of admiration appeared in Mihawk's eyes. He sheathed the small knife and drew the great black blade, Yoru. Boy. State your name. Roronoa Zoro. Zoro declared, arranging his 3 swords defensively, a feral grin spreading across his face. I will remember it. It has been long since I met such strength. As a gesture of respect. Between swordsmen, I shall use this strongest of black blades to send you to the depths, Mihawk replied, a rare smile touching his lips. I appreciate the honor, Zoro responded, gripping his 3 swords and unleashing his strongest attack. 3-sword style secret technique, Sanzen Sekai, 3000 worlds. Sheeing. Blood sprayed through the air. Other than Wado Ikemanji, the swords in Zoro's hands shattered upon impact. I lost. So this is the power of the world's strongest? Zoro silently sheathed Wado Ikemanji, then turned to face Mihawk, spreading his arms wide, exposing his chest. What is this? Mihawk looked slightly surprised. Scars on the back are a swordsman's shame. Zoro declared, laughing loudly. Subarashi. Magnificent. Mihawk laughed heartily in response. Slash. The black blade sliced deeply across Zoro's chest, sending him falling backward into the sea. Zoro. Seeing the outcome, Luffy could restrain himself no longer. He launched himself at Mihawk using his Gomu Gomu powers, but Mihawk easily dodged, letting Luffy crash into the wreckage of Don Krieg's galleon. Calm yourself. He is not dead yet, Mihawk stated calmly. Watching Johnny and Yasaku dive into the sea to rescue Zoro, Rowen leaped gracefully, landing directly in front of Mihawk. Mihawk's eyes narrowed, focusing on Rowen. The crimson-black light in Rowen's eyes solidified, seeming to crackle faintly in the air. A similar crimson-black glint flashed in Mihawk's own eyes. Conqueror's Haki versus Conqueror's Haki. King versus King. Rowen. Seeing Rowen step forward to face Mihawk directly, especially after witnessing Zoro's utter helplessness against him moments before, Nami cried out, her eyes filled with fear and worry. Zoro was renowned throughout the East Blue, a pirate hunter feared even by pirates with multi-million berry bounties. Yet, before the hawk-eyed man, he was as fragile as an infant. Rowen was strong, yes, but against a monster like this. Nami watched Rowen's back as he faced Mihawk, her hands clasped tightly over her heart, fraught with anxiety. One after another, are they all crazy? That moss head, he was facing the world's strongest. He should have known the outcome before even starting. Couldn't he just give up on his ambition? It's simple, right? Just give up. Sanji muttered, watching Johnny and Yasaku haul Zoro's broken body onto a small boat. He then looked at Rowen, who stood firm before Mihawk despite the vivid example of Zoro's defeat. Sanji wasn't dismissing Rowen or Zoro. Instead, he was trying to convince himself. Although he found the moss-headed swordsman annoying and deeply envied Rowen for winning the beautiful lady's favor, Sanji looked at them and saw kindred spirits. People willing to risk everything, even their lives, for their ambitions and dreams. His own act of feeding Don Krieg earlier, fundamentally, how different was it from that idiot mosshead challenging Mihawk? Sanji felt a flicker of longing, a pull towards joining this crew. But he still owed Zeph a debt of gratitude he hadn't fully repaid. You are companions of that young swordsman, correct? Thank you for staying to witness the end, Mihawk stated calmly, looking at Rowen. A faint crimson-black light flickered within his hawk-like eyes. To possess haki of this caliber, in the weakest sea. It is quite surprising, Mihawk acknowledged, his tone becoming slightly more serious. This was respect offered to another man who had awakened Conqueror's haki, who possessed the disposition of a king. It seems you have business with me. However, allow me to conclude this matter first, Mihawk said slowly. The simmering Conqueror's haki around Rowen subsided slightly, indicating his assent. Young swordsman. It is too early for you to die. Mihawk called out, looking towards Zoro, who had just been pulled aboard the boat. My name is Dracule Mihawk. Discover yourself. See the true world. Become strong. No matter how many years it takes, I shall wait for you at the top. Surpass this sword. Surpass me. Roronoa Zoro. Mihawk's words were an acknowledgement from the world's greatest swordsman of Zoro's performance. This young swordsman possessed the powerful spirit required to become a truly great swordsman. He also possessed the pride of a swordsman. It had been a long time since Mihawk encountered a newcomer with such potential, one worth anticipating. Ever since Shanks lost his left arm, sealing away his left-handed swordsmanship forever, Mihawk had felt a profound loneliness. In terms of pure swordsmanship, no one left on the seas could truly force him to be serious. Big bro. Wake up! Johnny and Yasako sobbed, while Usopp frantically applied medicine and tended to Zoro's wounds. Mihawk, however, knew Zoro was merely unconscious. He had held back. Boy. What is your goal? Mihawk turned his gaze towards Luffy. This boy, chosen by Shanks to be king of the pirates. Luffy declared loudly, facing the world's strongest swordsman without flinching. Oof. That is a path even more arduous than surpassing me, Mihawk replied, a slight curve appearing on his lips. Just as expected. A boy chosen by Shanks should be like this. I don't care. I'm gonna be it anyway. Luffy finished, then stuck his tongue out and made a face at Mihawk. He's alive. Just passed out. Usopp's shout drew Luffy's attention back to Zoro. Rowen, the crimson-black light in his eyes softening slightly, also looked towards Zoro. Big bro, say something. Johnny and Yasaku pleaded tearfully. Clank. With his last ounce of strength, Zoro raised his only remaining sword, Wado Ikemanji, high into the air. Luffy. Rowen. Can you hear me? Zoro gasped, exhausted and severely injured, but his voice remained firm. Yeah. Luffy yelled back. We hear you, Rowen replied, his expression solemn. Even an awakened king would show full respect to a man like Zoro. Sorry for making you worry. Zoro held the sword aloft. If I don't become the world's strongest swordsman, it would cause you guys trouble, right? Cough, cough. He couldn't finish before a racking cough shook his body due to his severe injuries. Big bro. Don't talk anymore. Your wounds are reopening. Johnny and Yasako cried out anxiously. But Zoro pushed through the pain, continuing. I will never lose again. Zoro covered his eyes with his free hand, tears streaming down his face. This incredibly tough man, who could endure 20 days of starvation without showing weakness, shed tears of humiliation after suffering such a crushing defeat. It also signified Zoro's ambition would continue. Until I defeat him, and become the world's greatest swordsman. I absolutely will never lose again. Zoro roared. Mihawk's lips curved slightly further. Do you have a problem with that? King of the pirates. Sky Sovereign. Zoro yelled defiantly. Shishishi. Nope. Luffy grinned widely, overjoyed. Rowen didn't answer verbally. He simply smiled, then the crimson-black light in his eyes flared intensely as he turned back to face Mihawk. His actions would be his answer to Zoro. Sky Sovereign. Is that your title? Quite arrogant, Mihawk commented. You are not a swordsman. What business do you have with me? Mihawk asked calmly. How about you do me a favor? Measure my disposition, Rowen replied, a confident, powerful curve to his lips. Encountering a man like Mihawk, standing at the absolute pinnacle of the seas, how could Rowen not want to gauge his own current disposition, to understand the gap between himself and such a peak powerhouse? And given Mihawk's connection to Shanks, he was the most suitable target for such a measurement. Hearing Rowen's words, and following his subtle gesture towards Luffy's hat, Mihawk understood. This young man knows about my relationship with Shanks? Then this favor, indeed, must be granted. Disposition, you say? Very well. My hawk agreed, the crimson-black light within his own hawk-like eyes beginning to flash intensely. And also, Rowen continued before my hawk could finish. Let my comrade know what kind of power he needs to attain, before he can challenge you again. Rowen laughed, and incredibly, faint arcs of crimson-black lightning began to crackle around his body. Without the power of infused Conqueror's Haki, defeating my hawk completely was impossible. Hearing this, and seeing the crimson-black lightning flickering around Rowen, my hawk's eyes suddenly narrowed. Have you been to the Grand Line? No, to the New World? My hawk asked gravely. This young man had not only awakened Conqueror's Haki, but he also knew it could be infused into attacks, knew it was the most domineering power on these seas? Otherwise, why would he say such a thing? In the East Blue, even the first half of the Grand Line, forget Conqueror's Haki, most didn't even know about armament Haki. No, even in the New World, only a very small number of top-tier powerhouses understood the true nature of Conqueror's Haki. Never been. But my comrades and I are about to conquer it, Rowen replied boldly. Though I do not know how you learned the truth about Conqueror's Haki, since you know, what is the point of displaying such power to that young swordsman? This power is innate. Without the aptitude, it cannot be awakened, my hawk stated, his sharp eyes fixed on Rowen. Aside from Rowen with his system, even my hawk couldn't know for certain if Zoro possessed the disposition of a king. Therefore, my hawk's earlier words to Zoro, telling him to get stronger and surpass him, referred purely to swordsmanship. Without infused Conqueror's Haki, even if Zoro's skill eventually equaled my hawk's, he would have no chance of truly winning. My hawk had simply intended to plant a seed, to see if this young swordsman's skill might one day reach a level where they could spar for enjoyment, allowing my hawk to briefly alleviate his boredom. Of course, in such a spar, my hawk wouldn't use his own infused Conqueror's Haki. He will awaken such power, of course, Rowen stated, a supremely confident curve to his lips. He is, after all, a man acknowledged by me, Rowen. Rowen laughed boldly. The wreckage of Don Krieg's ship around them seemed to tremble and crumble slightly under the pressure of his aura. Standing upon the sea, empowered by his Born of the Sea trait, and unleashing his Conqueror's Haki, even my hawk could not ignore Rowen now. My hawk's pupils constricted sharply. This is already capable of causing tangible physical effects on the surroundings. After awakening, Conqueror's Haki initially only affected weaker wills, causing them to faint. With further strengthening, it could exert physical force on the environment. Eventually, one could learn to infuse it into attacks, and finally, complete mastery of infused Conqueror's Haki granted the power to become one of the absolute strongest on the seas. This young man before him was already walking the correct path, the path towards the absolute pinnacle of this world. And my hawk wasn't sure if his sharp eyes were deceiving him, but in this young man, he thought he saw a faint shadow of the man whose execution he had once witnessed, the Pirate King. Extreme confidence, extreme dominance, just standing there, he seemed like the radiant center of the sea itself. Although this young man's Haki was far weaker than the Pirate King's, the potential, the nascent form, was unmistakably there. The weakest sea, the East Blue, has produced such a young man. Waves stirred within my hawk's usually calm heart. Zoro is the man who will become the world's greatest swordsman, Rowen declared, laughing boldly. Zoro, still covering his eyes, felt fresh tears flow uncontrollably. Rowen. He would never lose again. Poof. A genuine smile touched my hawk's lips. Interesting. The next moment. VMM. Boom. Rowen's eyes narrowed intensely. The crimson-black light within them solidified, erupting outwards like a raging storm. Boom. My hawk's hawk-like eyes narrowed in response. His own Conqueror's Haki roared forth to meet the challenge. Two storms of pure will collided mid-air. Crackle. Boom. Crimson-black lightning tore through the atmosphere, two opposing forces clashing violently. A tempestuous vortex of power erupted, centered between Rowen and my hawk, raging outwards. Luffy, standing closest to the clash, was instantly blown away by the sheer force of the colliding hockey storms. Amidst the yelling, Luffy immediately used his rubber powers, stretching his arms to grab onto the Barrady's railing and pull himself back aboard the restaurant ship. Rumble! The terrifying storm generated by the clashing hockey lifted the wreckage of Don Krieg's galleon right out of the sea, tossing debris high into the air. Thump! 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 As the tempest swept past, the remaining Krieg pirate grunts' pupils constricted in terror. Their eyes rolled back, and they all collapsed, unconscious. Then, they too were swept up by the raging vortex and blown away. High above, even the clouds began to recede, frantically pulling away from the space directly above Rowen and Mihawk. This was a clash between two kings. Nothing, not even the clouds, could presume to remain above them. Conqueror's hockey. Clash. What's happening? Sanji braced himself against the buffeting winds, staring wide-eyed at the epicenter of the collision, cold sweat dripping down his face. Many of the chefs around him couldn't withstand the impact either and had fainted. What is this power? Conqueror's hockey. So this is the power of Conqueror's hockey? Truly astounding. Zeph, who had heard legends but never witnessed it firsthand, stared with undisguised shock. Conqueror's hockey? Sanji murmured the term. Conqueror's hockey. So, it's not just for knocking out weaklings, it can be used as raw power too? Is this what you wanted to show me, Rowen? Zoro gritted his teeth, his body shielded by Usopp, Johnny, and Yasaku from the worst of the Tempest's effects due to his injuries. But a feral grin spread across Zoro's face. This power. He would obtain it too. With power like this, he could challenge Hawkeye's again, right? As for whether he could obtain it? Zoro had no doubts. Rowen said he could, so he would. Otherwise, how could he live up to Rowen's acknowledgement? Ha! The storm gradually subsided. The intense crimson-black light in both Rowen's and Mihawk's eyes slowly faded. Splash! Splash! The wreckage of Don Krieg's ship rained back down into the sea. Astonishing hockey! To possess such disposition without even having sailed the Grand Line. Sky Sovereign Rowen. I shall remember that name, Mihawk stated, a hint of surprise in his eyes. Only after clashing could one truly gauge the depth of another's conqueror's hockey. This young man's disposition felt far beyond what someone of his age and experience should possess. There were undoubtedly individuals on the Grand Line with conqueror's hockey far stronger than this young man's. But considering his youth, the fact he hadn't yet ventured into the Grand Line, and had trained hockey of this level solely within the East Blue, the weakest sea, this young man's potential was limitless. Furthermore, Mihawk felt he saw in this young man a faint shadow of the Pirate King. Although this young man's hockey was far weaker than the Pirate King's, the resemblance, the potential, was definitely there. The weakest sea, the East Blue, has produced such a young man. For the first time in a long while, even Mihawk felt a tremor of genuine surprise ripple through him. Clashed Conqueror's hockey with Pirate Faction iconic figure, Warlord Hawkeye's Mihawk, causing slight mental fluctuation. Faction Fortune, Apex Gold, hidden effect triggered. Plundering a portion of target's fortune. Awakened. Armament. Hockey, observation hockey. A series of notifications, visible only to Rowen, appeared. And the gains didn't stop there. Your words significantly increased bond with Zoro. Trait equipping progress increased. Demonic physique, deep purple, equipping complete. Rowen looked at the notifications, his eyes flashing. The completion of demonic physique's equipping was already part of his plan. But he hadn't expected that clashing Conqueror's hockey could trigger Faction Fortune's, Apex Gold, hidden effect. Causing a mental fluctuation in an iconic pirate faction figure through a hockey clash allowed him to plunder a portion of their fortune. Makes sense. After all, completely defeating such a figure allowed Faction Fortune to plunder their entire fortune. And causing mental fluctuation during a hockey clash could grant a tactical advantage in battle. No wonder in the original story, Conqueror's Haki users, even those who hadn't mastered infusion yet, often clashed their Haki before engaging in a final life or death struggle. However, this slight fluctuation was negligible for someone like Mihawk. He would recover completely in moments. This was only possible because Mihawk, respecting his connection to Shanks, had significantly restrained his own Haki release. Otherwise, Rowen wouldn't have appeared to be evenly matched in that clash. Shanks's connection really is useful. Although it was just a slight fluctuation, it was enough for Rowen. That tiny sliver of plundered fortune was sufficient to awaken his armament Haki and observation Haki. As expected of one of the pirate faction's top figures, second only to the emperors among the warlords. Just a tiny fraction of his fortune yielded such significant gains. This power was exactly what Rowen needed most before entering the Grand Line. Plus, Zoro's demonic physique, deep purple, completed equipping at this very moment. Shaq traits. Rowen traits: superhuman physique, deep purple, demonic physique, deep purple, armament Haki, deep purple, observation Haki, deep purple, conqueror's Haki, pale gold, faction fortune, apex gold, board of the sea, apex gold, azura aura, special, equipping. Anthem of courage, special, equipping. Sun God, apex gold, equipping, armament Haki and observation Haki both had reached the deep purple tier. Through the trait system, the moment they awakened, Rowen gained a deeper understanding of Haki. The strength of armament Haki was related to the user's physique combined with their disposition. The strength of observation Haki was related to the user's spirit/mental fortitude combined with their disposition. Rowen had already awakened Conqueror's Haki, and his disposition was constantly being enhanced by Born of the Sea. As a result, his Conqueror's Haki was already strong enough to cause tangible physical effects on his surroundings. In terms of the disposition component influencing Haki strength, Rowen certainly didn't lack it. However, the physique component required for armament Haki strength was currently only at the deep purple level, from the superhuman physique trait. Therefore, Rowen's current armament Haki trait was also ranked deep purple. Furthermore, Rowen received new information regarding the upgrade conditions for physique-related traits. Below the pale gold tier, the rank of physique traits was still somewhat linked to directly demonstrated combat power. But at the pale gold tier and above, the rank of physique traits became more closely tied to stamina. After all, the minimum threshold for a pale gold combat trait was equivalent to the strength of a Marine headquarters vice admiral. Powerhouses at that level almost universally possessed strong armament Haki. No matter how much one trained their physique, they were still carbon-based lifeforms. Except for special cases like Big Mom with her iron balloon ability, or unique races like giants. How could other strong individuals, relying solely on their physical bodies without using Haki, devil fruits, or techniques like Tech-Eye, Iron Body, possibly exert strength equivalent to or greater than a vice admiral? Consider Garp the Fist, one of the absolute strongest individuals on the seas. In the original story, when caught off guard while sleeping, not using Haki or Tech-Eye, he could still be injured by Morgan's axe. Therefore, from the gold tier onwards, the key factor determining the rank of physique-type traits was the amount of stamina they provided. In the One Piece power system, stamina was the foundation of everything. Whether it was Haki or devil fruit powers, the fuel driving these abilities came from the user's stamina. Like Luffy in the original story, once his stamina was depleted, he couldn't use Haki or his devil fruit powers anymore. Essentially, stamina was the fuel for powers like Haki and devil fruits. So, the subsequent upgrades for physique-type traits primarily depended on the amount of stamina they contained. For example, if the stamina provided allowed the user to exert Haki or devil fruit powers at the minimum Marine Vice Admiral level, pale gold, then the physique trait itself would be ranked pale gold. If it provided enough stamina to exert powers at the minimum Marine Admiral level, apex gold, then the physique trait would be ranked apex gold. Very straightforward and easy to understand. Rowen nodded. But Rowen's gains weren't finished yet. Identical type traits detected: superhuman physique, deep purple, demonic physique, deep purple. Automatic fusion initiated. Fusion complete. Acquired: superhuman demonic physique, deep purple. Superhuman demonic physique, Deep Purple possesses digestive capabilities surpassing superhuman physique, Deep Purple, allowing rapid absorption of vast nutrients for self-strengthening. Furthermore, no matter how extreme the training or severe the damage to muscles and bones, can utilize absorbed nutrients to recover completely at a speed surpassing demonic physique, Deep Purple, consequently growing even stronger. The two physique traits had fused. Just as I thought. Superhuman physique and demonic physique are perfectly complementary. After fusion, Rowen's digestive ability now surpassed even Luffy's base superhuman physique, and his ability to repair damaged muscles and bones through training surpassed even Zoro's base demonic physique. Furthermore, because the demonic physique was acquired through direct equipping from Zoro, its inherent quality, likely above base threshold, similar to Luffy's, was merged as well. Now, Rowen's superhuman demonic physique only needed 5 more base Deep Purple materials to evolve to the apex purple tier. Physique enhanced. Born of the Sea, Apex Gold, trait activated. Armament Haki strengthened. Armament Haki upgraded to Apex Purple tier. Another notification screen, visible only to Rowen, appeared. Ordinarily, even if someone's physique improved, they would still need their disposition to increase and undergo dedicated training to strengthen their armament haki. But thanks to the Born of the Sea trait, Rowen's disposition was constantly being digested and perfectly controlled. The trait allowed him to directly enhance his haki. Therefore, as soon as Rowen's physical strength, stamina capacity, increased, his armament haki strength increased correspondingly. Unlike others who needed arduous training. Truly, the ultimate haki training cheat code. Looking at the armament haki, Apex Purple, trait, Rowen felt extremely satisfied with Born of the Sea. This was Rowen's first Apex Purple trait. Below the gold tier for combat traits, armament haki was incredibly powerful. After all, it was a power that only became commonplace in the New World. Even though Rowen's superhuman demonic physique, Deep Purple, was currently still ranked Deep Purple, the corresponding armament haki now displayed combat power at the Apex Purple level. However, once combat traits reached the pale gold tier, Vice Admiral threshold, the rank of physique traits would likely align more closely with the armament haki rank. Because powerhouses at that level almost universally possessed armament haki. At this moment, Rowen had acquired the most crucial piece for conquering the Grand Line, armament haki. With armament haki unlocked, Rowen's strategic thinking became more active. Before entering the Grand Line and confronting the warlord crocodile, there was one more devil fruit that might be worth acquiring, the Logia-type smoke fruit. Its user, Captain Smoker of the Logtown Marine Branch. Rowen's eyes glinted. While the smoke fruit was considered low tier among Logias, it was still a Logia. Possessing this fruit would give him more options when dealing with Crocodile. In the original story, Luffy's victory over Crocodile relied heavily on plot armor. Rowen preferred to hold his destiny firmly in his own hands. Simply by being near Mihawk, he had plundered a minuscule amount of fortune, which triggered the awakening of his armament and observation haki. While Crocodile couldn't compare to Mihawk, he was still one of the 7 warlords, an iconic figure of the pirate faction. By thoroughly defeating him and plundering his entire fortune, Rowen wondered just how much benefit the faction fortune, Apex Gold, trait would provide. Rowen eagerly anticipated finding out. Although he had awakened armament and observation haki, and his armament haki had even reached Apex Purple due to the physique enhancement. Thanks to the strongest trait system and Born of the Sea, Apex Gold, this entire process had completed almost instantaneously. Rowen composed himself and looked towards Mihawk. "Thank you for this, Hawkeye's Mihawk," Rowen said with a smile. Although Mihawk had acted primarily out of respect for Shanks, without him, Rowen wouldn't have finished equipping Zoro's demonic physique trait. Nor would he have awakened his armament and observation haki. Since Mihawk had shown him face, Rowen wouldn't begrudge a simple thank you. "I did not expect to encounter young people like you in the East Blue. I look forward to meeting you again on the Grand Line," Mihawk replied with a faint smile, assuming Rowen was thanking him for measuring his disposition and showing the young swordsman the nature of the sea's most domineering power. He had been bored for far too long since Shanks lost his arm. Providing some nourishment for these budding sprouts of the new era, perhaps it would make the future more interesting. With that, Mihawk turned to leave. "Hey! Hawkeyes! Weren't you here to take my head? A furious roar suddenly halted Mihawk's departure. To take the head of me, Don Krieg, the overlord of the East Blue. Seeing Mihawk interacting only with Rowen's group and completely ignoring him, the ruler of the East Blue. Krieg, whose pride had already been wounded by Rowen, erupted in rage. That was my original intention. However, I've had my fun. I'm going back to sleep now, Mihawk replied dismissively, not even turning around. You may have had your fun, but I've been taking a beating this whole time. Before you go back, die! Krieg roared, deploying all the cannons hidden within his golden armor. Such an ignorant man, Mihawk sighed, feeling no goodwill towards such a fool who didn't know his place. After his interactions with Zoro and Rowen, Mihawk now lacked even the slightest interest in cutting down such a weakling who couldn't recognize his own limitations. With a single, effortless swing of his black blade, Yoru, Mihawk detonated all the incoming cannonballs and shells. Then, his figure flickered and vanished without a trace. Humph! Running away? Krieg spat contemptuously. Put! A sharp, derisive chuckle cut through the air, making veins bulge on Krieg's forehead. Brat! What are you laughing at? Krieg glared murderously at Rowen. This brat! Earlier, using that strange power, had made even him hesitate to look directly, and knocked out his subordinates. But a cruel smile spread across Krieg's face. How could a human cut a massive ship with just a sword? That Hawkeyes must have used the power of one of those legendary devil fruits. And that strange power you and Hawkeyes used, that must be a devil fruit ability too, right? Ability users like that are dime a dozen on the Grand Line. That Zeph guy managed to survive a year on the Grand Line, he must know how to deal with ability users like you. Once I get his logbook, I'll conquer the Grand Line again. Krieg looked at Rowen, who seemed less imposing now that his hockey had subsided, spread his arms wide, and roared with laughter. And you were foolish too. After using up all that power earlier, you must be completely exhausted now, right? Krieg leered at Rowen, his expression turning savage. But... Ha ha. Ha 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 ha. Hearing Krieg's words, Rowen couldn't hold back any longer. He burst into laughter, tears streaming down his face. Krieg was just as idiotic in the original story, but to think, even after witnessing the clash of Conqueror's hockey between me and Mihawk, this fool still lumps Conqueror's hockey together with devil fruit abilities. A frog in a well. So, what exactly are you laughing at? Krieg roared, thoroughly enraged, pointing his arsenal of weapons directly at Rowen. Ha ha ha. Sorry. You're just too good at making me laugh, Rowen replied, wiping away tears of mirth from the corner of his eye. But if you want to fight me, you should be prepared to lose everything. Rowen's smile slowly faded. Lose everything? Are you talking about that so-called Davy back fight game? Krieg demanded, veins bulging on his forehead. Making him laugh? The words infuriated Krieg. The Davy back fight was the pirate gameplay between Foxy and Luffy's crew in the original story, where losers could have their comrades, pride, and even Jolly Roger stolen, losing everything precious to a pirate. It was a well-known game among pirates. What I'm talking about isn't some childish game, Rowen stated, looking at Krieg with his intimidating villain expression. Old man Zeph. If I take out this idiot, can Luffy's 1 year of work here be cancelled? Rowen called out, looking towards Zeph. I couldn't ask for more. If that brat worked here for a year, he'd probably destroy my entire restaurant. Zeph replied, his eyes narrowing slightly. He also wanted to see what capabilities this Conqueror's hockey user truly possessed. Alright then. Luffy. Zoro. Usopp. Nami. And you too, Sanji. Watch closely. This is the true power of hockey. Rowen declared, turning back to face Krieg, a confident, powerful curve returning to his lips. Hockey? Luffy and Zoro immediately focused their attention. Hey, hey! Why are you including me? Sanji protested verbally, but his eyes were glued intently on Rowen. There's a limit to looking down on people. Brat! Krieg roared, unleashing his entire arsenal of cannons towards Rowen. Boom! A massive explosion erupted, engulfing Rowen in dust and smoke. Humph! Serves you right. Krieg laughed triumphantly. Hey, so-called overlord of the East Blue, is this toy all you rely on? Krieg's pupils constricted as he stared intently into the settling dust. Rowen stood there, completely unharmed, having blocked the entire barrage with just his outstretched palm. This application of armament hockey worked on the same principle as the three admirals blocking Whitebeard's shockwaves during the Summit War. Rowen then casually brushed non-existent dust off his clothes and began walking towards Krieg. With armament hockey, the dust hadn't actually even touched him. But the gesture looked cool. Suji. Rowen. Luffy, fulfilling his usual role of providing maximum emotional support for his comrades, yelled out excitedly. Zoro, Sanji, and Usopp stared wide-eyed as well. Nami covered her mouth, gazing blankly at Rowen, who seemed to radiate light like the sun at the center of the sea. Armament hockey can become armor for defense, Rowen explained calmly as he walked towards Krieg, who was now breaking out in a cold sweat. It can also, Rowen continued. Whoosh! With a powerful push off the deck, Rowen instantly appeared directly in front of Krieg. Armament! Rowen raised his right fist. The next moment, VMM. Clang! Accompanied by a metallic sound, Rowen's right fist was enveloped in armament hockey, turning jet black. Armament hockey hardening. Don't get too cocky, brat. If you want to fight, then try this. Krieg snarled, revealing a cruel smile. With a swift motion, he donned a spiked steel cape that bristled with needle-sharp points. Hey! That's cowardly! Sanji yelled upon seeing the armor. But the next moment, he was left utterly speechless. Punch through anything. Rowen finished his sentence, his black fist descending forcefully. Crack! The steel cape, composed of countless sharp spikes, shattered like brittle candy upon impact. Whoosh! The blackened fist continued unabated, slamming violently into Krieg's horrified face. Bang! With a sickening thud, Krieg collapsed heavily to the deck. Crackle! The remaining wreckage of Krieg's ship beneath him instantly buckled and splintered from the force, the impact even causing the surrounding seawater to churn and splash violently. Sanji stared blankly at the scene. Krieg's face now sported a deep, concave fist imprint. His eyes had rolled white. He was completely silent. The overlord of the East Blue had been defeated instantly. Plunder! Sanji and the other chefs stared, dumbfounded, at Don Krieg lying motionless at Rowen's feet. The supposed overlord of the East Blue, the great pirate with a 17 million berry bounty, defeated instantly? That impenetrable cloak, forged entirely from steel spikes, shattered by a mere fist? Was this man even human? Suji! Luffy roared with excitement. Hockey? Is this the power of hockey? Zoro muttered, struggling to push his heavily injured body upright. This power can only truly be grasped on the Grand Line. It's exhilarating. A fierce, beast-like grin spread across Zoro's face. Amazing, Usopp breathed, completely stunned. How could a human fist punch straight through steel and remain completely unharmed? Rowen, Nami whispered, covering her mouth as she gazed at Rowen, who seemed to almost glow at the center of the chaotic scene. So strong. Don Krieg, despite his reputation and 17 million berry bounty as the overlord of the East Blue, couldn't even withstand a single blow from Rowen. He was taken out in an instant. Arlong's bounty was only 20 million berry. Even if Arlong was stronger than Krieg, surely not strong enough to defeat him with a single punch like that, right? At that moment, remembering Rowen's earlier words to her, Nami pressed her lips together tightly. Captain! Jin cried out in horror. The invincible Captain Krieg defeated by this man with a single punch? Plunder! Rowen commanded inwardly. A purple light, visible only to Rowen, separated from Krieg's body and flowed into Rowen. Krieg possessed one deep purple trait related to brute strength. Rowen didn't bother examining the details, he immediately converted it. Krieg's combat prowess relied heavily on external equipment, his only notable personal attribute was his raw physical power. After conversion, Rowen obtained one deep purple strength type upgrade material. A decent gain. Gurgle. Under the horrified gazes of Jin, Sanji, and the other chefs. Don Krieg, the supposed overlord who had rampaged across the East Blue relying on brute force and weaponry, his superhumanly robust body suddenly began to deflate. His prominent muscles rapidly atrophied, leaving him utterly powerless. When Rowen plundered a strength-type trait, both the associated power and the physical attributes supporting it were absorbed as nourishment for Rowen's own strength. They were stripped away completely. Why you? What did you do? Jin rushed to Krieg's side, staring in horror at the bizarre and terrifying transformation, then looked fearfully at Rowen. I told you. If you fight me, you must be prepared to lose everything, Rowen replied, adopting his intimidating villain expression. Jin fell silent. After a moment, he slowly stood up, raising his weapons, a pair of tonfa, each tipped with a heavy iron ball. Oh? You saw what happened to Krieg, yet you still dare raise your weapon against me? Man-demon Jin, Rowen stated calmly, looking at Jin. Jin! What are you doing? Sanji yelled, his eye twitching. He hadn't expected Jin to be the Krieg pirates' battle commander. 12 million berry, you're pretty strong, Jin. But you're no match for Rowen. That guy Rowen beat up wasn't a good person. Why fight for him? Luffy called out to Jin. I know I'm no match for Mr. Rowen, but I am still the captain's subordinate. My dream is to support him. Jin declared, his face grim but his eyes resolute. Admirable conviction. However, are you ready to lose everything too? Rowen asked, a confident curve touching his lips. My resolve has been ready for a long time. Jin roared, swinging his iron-balled tonfa towards Rowen. Clang! A metallic impact echoed through the air. Jin's forehead broke out in cold sweat as he stared in horror at what happened. He had aimed for Rowen's abdomen, near the liver, a major human weak point. A solid hit there with his tonfa should have ruptured internal organs, instantly incapacitating his opponent. But, looking at the area he struck on Rowen's abdomen, which had turned jet black, Jin felt drenched in cold sweat. This is the power that defeated Captain Krieg? So it can cover not just fists, but the body too? So strong, like a monster. Only a man like this could conquer the Grand Line, right? Me and Captain Krieg, we were just frogs in a well, Jin let out a wry, almost liberating laugh, then looked straight at Rowen. Come on. End this. Mr. Rowen. Jin shouted. Very well. Rowen looked at Jin and smiled. Wham! Jin didn't resist as Rowen's fist struck his head, instantly knocking him unconscious. Jin, you idiot, Sanji murmured, watching Jin fall. He didn't blame Rowen. This was Jin's own choice. If Rowen hadn't struck Jin down, it would have been an insult to a man who had already steeled his resolve. Men of the sea could die, but they could not lose their dignity or their dreams. But Sanji looked at the fallen Jin, then at the heavily injured Zoro nearby, his own eyes hardened with resolve. One after another, all charging forward for their dreams and ambitions. Knowing they couldn't win, yet still pushing themselves. But Sanji clutched his chest. Why did he feel such a surge of excitement himself? All Blue, the legendary sea where the four oceans meet, said to contain every species of fish and marine ingredient. Sanji's dream reignited fiercely after witnessing these events, impossible to extinguish. Plunder. Rowen showed no mercy. Admiration was one thing, but as Rowen had stated, once you raise your weapon against him, you must be prepared to lose everything. For Jin, who had made his resolve clear, Rowen would not hold back. This is what it means to be a pirate. Plundering Jin's traits and converting them, Rowen obtained 6 pale purple strength-type upgrade materials. Jin's strength was clearly inferior to Krieg's, and also less than Kuro's before his traits were plundered. Jin possessed no deep purple traits. The reason Sanji struggled against Jin in the original story was primarily because Sanji was already injured from previous fights. Furthermore, without haki, relying solely on kicks against an armed opponent like Jin naturally put Sanji at a disadvantage. Gurgle. The power drained completely from Jin's body. Whoosh. Rowen picked up Jin's unconscious form and leaped lightly over to Sanji's side. He's something of a friend to you, right? Don't worry, he's not dead. I just took his power, Rowen explained, placing Jin down beside Sanji. As long as he's alive. Sanji replied, looking down at Jin, a faint smile on his lips. But, who in the world are you? Stealing other people's powers like that. Sanji looked at Rowen, his eye twitching slightly. Witnessing such power firsthand was truly terrifying. You'll understand once you become our comrade, Rowen replied, smiling knowingly at Sanji. Old man. I don't have to work for a year anymore, right? Luffy called out, having already seen Rowen's power-stealing ability back in Syrup Village. He grinned hopefully at Zeph. Yeah. You're free to go, Zeph replied with a smile. All right. We can set sail. Usopp cheered. We can set sail now, Sanji. Luffy looked at Sanji, grinning broadly. When did I say I was going with you guys? Everyone around here, one unreliable idiot after another, how can I possibly leave this place? Sanji muttered, lighting a cigarette as he gazed out at the sea. But someday I will go to the Grand Line, Sanji added quietly to himself. Then come with us now. Luffy popped up beside Sanji, grinning broadly. The time isn't right, Sanji murmured, then a genuine, heartfelt smile spread across his face. Hey! Have you ever heard of the All Blue? Sanji asked excitedly, launching into a passionate explanation of his dream to Luffy. Rowen glanced over at Nami, noticing her troubled expression. Looks like Nami's ready to talk to me. Sensing the emotional turmoil through his observation haki, Rowen's lips curved slightly. Up on the second-floor railing, Zeph watched Sanji talking animatedly about his dream, his eyes softening almost imperceptibly. The captured Krieg pirate grunts were left for the Baratai chefs to handle. None possessed traits above purple tier, making them useless to Rowen. However, from Pearl, the Krieg pirates' second unit commander, whom Sanji fought in the original story before Jin finished him, Rowen did manage to plunder and convert one pale purple trait. Adding that to Jin's 6 pale purple combat traits and the 3 from Django, Rowen now possessed a total of 10 pale purple strength type upgrade materials. Since Rowen's armament haki strength was now directly linked to his physique. Without hesitation, Rowen used all 10 materials to enhance his superhuman demonic physique, Deep Purple. Now, only 3 more base Deep Purple materials were needed to reach the apex purple tier. Consequently, Rowen's armament haki intensity grew even stronger. After enhancing the superhuman demonic physique, Deep Purple, trait again, Rowen, under the stunned gazes of Zeph and the others, proceeded to devour a massive amount of food to digest and refill the newly expanded stamina reserves. Hey! Who made this soup? Patty suddenly yelled while eating, pointing accusingly at a bowl of soup. Rowen, having mostly finished his own meal, watched the scene unfold with an amused smile. What a bunch of awkward idiots. Still, Rowen didn't dislike this kind of clumsy affection. That was me. Pretty good, huh? I was feeling particularly inspired today. Sanji laughed boastfully. This stuff tastes awful. Who could drink this? Is this pig slop? Patty retorted with disgust. Is there something wrong with your tongue? Today's soup is my masterpiece. Sanji snapped back, veins popping on his forehead. He would never compromise when it came to his cooking. Awful. Truly awful. What is this garbage? More chefs came over, tasted Sanji's soup, and echoed Patty's disgust. Sanji's expression grew increasingly thunderous until he finally exploded. What the hell is wrong with you guys? Sanji roared, glaring around at the other chefs. You're just a fake sous chef anyway. Only know how to solve problems with violence. Yeah. Never liked you from the start. The chefs shot Sanji hostile glares. We are chefs of the sea. We cannot waste a single scrap of food. Zeph suddenly spoke up, drawing everyone's attention. Under Sanji's watchful eye, Zeph picked up the bowl of soup and finished it. Then, crash! To Sanji's utter disbelief, Zeph violently smashed the empty soup bowl. What is this mud-like soup? If I served this to customers, my restaurant would go bankrupt. Zeph sneered coldly. Hey! You damn old geezer. Take that back. What's the difference between my soup and yours? Having his cooking insulted by the person he respected most was unbearable. Sanji lunged forward, grabbing Zeph's collar, yelling furiously. Talk cooking with me? You've got another billion years to go, brat. I'm a man who's cooked on seas all over the world. Zeph retorted, punching Sanji hard and knocking him down. Sanji clutched his cheek, stunned. After a moment, he slowly pushed himself back up. Damn it! Sanji roared in frustration, then stormed out of the restaurant. Even after being insulted like that, he wouldn't lay a hand on Zeph. Zeph was like a father to him. This soup is actually super delicious though, Luffy commented, helping himself to another bowl after Sanji left. Usopp nodded vigorously in agreement. Even Zoro, who seemed inexplicably predisposed to dislike Sanji, didn't deny it. Nami quietly ladled another bowl for Rowen and herself. Rowen looked at Nami and smiled. Sanji's cooking truly was excellent. Of course it's delicious. Everyone here recognizes Sanji's skill, Zeph stated calmly. But if we didn't say those things, how else would that idiot Sanji ever agree to leave? Zeph looked towards Luffy and Rowen. Your ship still needs a cook, right? This isn't a request, but could you take that brat with you? You've seen his skills. His dream lies on the Grand Line, Zeph said, his voice softening slightly with emotion. No thanks, Luffy replied simply, looking up. Eh? The other chefs stared, bewildered. Didn't you say your ship needed a cook? Zeph was equally confused. I really want him to come with us. But he said he wants to stay here and be a cook. Even if you guys say it's okay, I can't just drag him along. Luffy explained, then held up his empty plate. Another bowl. So you want him to come with you willingly, is that it? Zeph chuckled, understanding. That's right, Luffy mumbled around a mouthful of food. But will that brat actually leave willingly? Zeph stroked his braided beard thoughtfully. Probably not. He's a super stubborn idiot, the chefs murmured amongst themselves. I heard all of that, you bastards, Sanji's voice drifted in from outside. He had returned, leaning against the doorframe, lighting a cigarette and gazing up at the sky. Well, we're heading out now. Thanks for the hospitality. Having finished eating, Rowan's group prepared to leave. Luffy grinned broadly. Hey! Wait up! Just then, Sanji approached them, carrying his packed bags. For the sake of my dream, I guess I'll tag along with you guys, Sanji announced, looking up with determination. Shishi. We gotta cook. Luffy cheered loudly. Welcome aboard, Sanji, Rowen smiled. Yeah. Leave the cooking to me from now on, Sanji replied, walking towards the Going Merry. Aren't you going to say goodbye to them? Luffy asked, pointing back towards the group of chefs and Zeph watching from the Baratai deck. No need, Sanji exhaled a puff of smoke. Hey! Sanji! Just as Sanji was about to board the ship, Zeph's voice called out. Sanji paused but didn't turn around. Damn old geezer, what does he want now? Does he expect a hug? A tearful farewell? That's not how men say goodbye. Sanji resolved not to look back, no matter what the old geezer said. He would depart with dignity, like a true man of the sea. Don't catch a cold. Zeph said, a rare, genuine smile gracing his features. Sanji bit down hard on his cigarette. His nose stung sharply. Tears welled up, blurring his vision. Ueawa he spun around, dropping to his knees on the deck, bowing deeply towards Zeph. Owner Zeph. For all these long years, thank you for everything. I'll never forget your kindness for as long as I live. Sanji choked out, tears streaming freely down his face. Rowen watched this iconic scene unfold, a smile playing on his lips. Don't catch a cold. Such simple words, hitting right at the heart. Damn brat, Zeph muttered, his own eyes misting over. We'll miss you. Take care of yourself, Sanji, you bastard. The other chefs were now openly bawling as well. You bastards. See you again. Sanji yelled back from the deck of the Mary, laughing through his tears. Sanji has joined the Straw Hat Pirates. A keepable trait list updated. Modified exoskeleton. Somewhere in the East Blue, aboard the Going Mary. The ship sailed onward. Yasaku and Johnny had already parted ways with Rowen and the crew. The topmost level of the Mary had been converted into a training room, as requested by Rowen and the others. Wham! Bang! With two sickening crunches, Luffy and Zoro slammed hard against the walls. Ow ow ow! Luffy yelled, clutching his already bruised and swollen face. I'm made of rubber. How can it hurt this much? Was Gramps using hockey when he hit me too? Luffy rubbed the sore spot, wincing. The sensation was painfully familiar, exactly like the feeling of his grandfather's so-called fist of love during his childhood training. Even with his rubber body, it hurt like hell. Now that he knew the power Rowen used was hockey, Luffy finally understood what Garp had been hitting him with all those years. Ha, ha, strong, Zoro gasped, pushing himself up from the floor, his eyes still wide with shock. Although two of his swords had been shattered by Mihawk, leaving him with only Wado Ikemanji, and he wasn't particularly skilled with one sword style compared to three, and despite still recovering from his injuries, limiting his full strength. The power of hockey was overwhelming. He and Luffy, working together, had been completely powerless against Rowen. Looking at the jet black coating on Rowen's fists, Zoro's expression turned grim. Armament hockey. His swords couldn't even scratch it. And its offensive power was unparalleled. And that was just coating his fists. What if that power could be infused into his swords? A fierce, beast-like grin spread across Zoro's face. With that, he could become countless times stronger. But the next moment, Rowen's words shattered Zoro's fantasy. Can neither of you sense hockey, even a little bit? Rowen asked, looking helplessly at Zoro and Luffy. Rowen, don't look at me like that. You're making me feel like I'm as big an idiot as Luffy. Zoro exclaimed, his face twitching uncontrollably under Rowen's gaze. That was the look you gave an utter moron. How did Zoro know? Because that was exactly how he usually looked at Luffy. What? Zoro. I just wasn't serious yet. Stung by Zoro's words, Luffy instantly leaped up, yelling defiantly, and charged towards Rowen again. Take my full power. Gomu Gomu no. Smack. Zoro's eye twitched as he watched Luffy scream, getting punched straight into the wall by Rowen, becoming embedded so deeply it took a while to wiggle free. What an idiot. But why was he, just like that idiot, completely unable to sense the hockey Rowen spoke of? Seeing Rowen's slightly exasperated sigh, Zoro's face twitched even more violently. Am I really that dense? Let's take it slow. Can't rush this, Rowen sighed, looking at Zoro and Luffy. He had hoped to teach these two, get them to learn hockey before reaching Log Town, so they could help out against Smoker. But now it seemed, teaching hockey to Luffy and Zoro, who had only just set out to sea, was proving much harder than expected. Of course, Rowen's idea of teaching was arguably even worse than Rayleigh's notoriously hands-off approach. How could Rowen possibly know how to teach hockey? Others, even after awakening armament hockey and meeting the requirements for disposition and physique, still needed dedicated training to strengthen it. But Rowen, equipped with Born of the Sea, Apex Gold, his personal hockey training cheat code only needed to improve his physique, and his armament hockey automatically grew stronger alongside it. Possessing Born of the Sea, Apex Gold, Rowen was now, without a doubt, the most terrifying hockey prodigy on these seas. And for a super prodigy like him, how did one learn hockey? Didn't you just think about it, raise your hand, and hockey comes out? Did it even need learning? So, Rowen's training method for Zoro and Luffy was brutally direct: get beat up. Force their bodies to directly experience the power of hockey, hoping they'd eventually learn to sense and use it themselves. Naturally, Rowen held back significantly when sparring with the injured Zoro. He had initially wanted Zoro to fully recover before training, but seeing Zoro's determination to train even while injured, Rowen didn't argue further. With Zoro's demonic physique trait, as long as Rowen was careful, nothing serious would happen. Still, this training progress wasn't ideal. Luffy and Zoro had only just begun their journey. Their strength and disposition were far from the levels they possessed in the original story when they learned hockey. Even at that point in the story, both Luffy and Zoro had to train intensely for a long time before mastering hockey. Rowen knew getting them to learn hockey quickly was unlikely. They'd just have to take it slow. These two are my best future employees, after all. They need to get strong quickly to help me gather those super powerful traits. Rowen sighed again. Seeing Rowen sigh made Zoro's face twitch even harder. Suji. Rowen is seriously strong. Usopp exclaimed from the sidelines, watching Luffy and Zoro get effortlessly handled. Nami nodded silently, her eyes fixed on Rowen, unable to look away. Click. All right, idiots. Time to eat. The training room door opened, and Sanji entered carrying trays laden with food, calling out to Luffy and Zoro. Rowen, this portion is yours, Sanji said, his tone much more polite towards Rowen as he handed him the largest serving. Who are you calling an idiot? You curly-browed moron. Zoro, already sensitive about the word idiot, instantly bristled at Sanji's words, veins popping on his forehead as he snarled back. What did you say? Moss head. Wanna fight? Sanji immediately flared up, and the two instantly started brawling. This is delicious. Luffy commented happily, stuffing his face with Sanji's cooking. Truly exquisite, Rowen agreed, enjoying Sanji's culinary artistry while casually watching Zoro and Sanji scuffle. The ingredients and seasonings are completely different from Earth. For someone from Rowen's background, nothing beat enjoying a delicious meal after a hard workout. Even better, all the food consumed was being efficiently converted by his superhuman demonic physique, deep purple, trait to strengthen his body, the ultimate enjoyment. As for why Sanji wasn't training hockey with Zoro and Luffy? Because Sanji's role was cook. Compared to training, Sanji prioritized ensuring Rowen and the others had balanced, nutritious meals after their workouts. Strengthening himself came second. Zoro and Sanji tussled for a bit before Zoro collapsed, exhausted. Constantly getting hit with hockey, combined with his unhealed injuries, had pushed Zoro to his limit. Sanji didn't kick him while he was down, though. Sanji's principle was to feed anyone hungry first, even an annoying mosshead like Zoro. Now, Zoro was ravenously devouring Sanji's cooking. Damn cook is annoying, but his skills are undeniable. Zoro thought grudgingly between bites. Delicious, right? Mosshead? Make sure you eat every last bite, Sanji commented, lighting a cigarette and smirking slightly as he watched Zoro inhale his food, alongside Rowen and Luffy who were also praising his cooking. For a chef, what moment could be more fulfilling than this? Didn't need your commentary, curly brows, Zoro retorted, then ignored Sanji and focused on eating. Oof. Sanji grinned. That damn mosshead finally admitted his cooking is delicious. Finished. Let's eat. Luffy cheered, wiping his mouth. All right, rest up, everyone. That's enough hockey training for now. We'll pick it up again when we reach the Grand Line, Rowen announced, having consumed enough food to satisfy his superhuman demonic physique's digestive needs. Sailing at night was dangerous. Even with a navigator, standard procedure was to anchor the ship at sea and wait for daylight to continue. Oh. Tomorrow, we finally head to the Grand Line. Luffy cheered excitedly. These past few days anchored in this area, Rowen had been instructing them in hockey. Zoro and Sanji both smiled. Their dreams could only be realized on the Grand Line. Only Rowen remained silent, walking towards the door with a thoughtful expression, observing the sky through the cabin window. His observation haki had already picked up the subtle shift in Nami's emotions when Luffy shouted about heading to the Grand Line. Lingering in this sea area these past few days to train Luffy and the others was also intended to give Nami enough time to gather the resolve to finally confide in them. Looks like there's still some trade harvesting to do before reaching the Grand Line. Rowen smiled faintly and headed towards the bathroom. Ha! After a comfortable hot bath, Rowen sat on his bed, letting out a relaxed sigh. But, as expected of haki, even training observation haki is surprisingly brutal. Rowen's expression turned serious. While his conqueror's haki intensity grew stronger daily thanks to Born of the Sea, Apex Gold, his armament haki and observation haki still required strengthening his physique and spirit, respectively. Improving armament haki was straightforward. Thanks to Born of the Sea, Apex Gold, Rowen only needed to enhance his physique, and his armament haki would strengthen automatically. As for observation haki, through sparring, beating up Luffy and Zoro, combined with feedback from the system, Rowen had figured out how to improve it. The strength of observation haki depended on a combination of one's spirit, mental fortitude, and disposition. Here, spirit could be understood as an extension of the user's five senses, allowing them to perceive the presence, emotions, and movements of enemies. After awakening observation haki, enhancing the five senses through training strengthened the haki itself. Furthermore, the five senses played a more significant role in determining observation haki's strength compared to disposition. Essentially, observation haki acted as an amplifier and manifestation of the user's five senses. And enhancing this manifested sensory perception, aside from rare geniuses, typically required engaging in life or death battles against opponents of at least equal strength. Yes, unlike armament haki, observation haki did have geniuses. For example, Katakuri, though only Yonko commander level, had trained his observation haki to its absolute peak, achieving something many emperor/admiral level fighters couldn't, briefly seeing into the future. This ability to glimpse the future was essentially an evolution of observation haki, a manifestation and extension of the user's sixth sense. Additionally, some individuals were born with unique, innate forms of observation haki that couldn't even be obtained through training. For those who weren't geniuses like Katakuri, improving their manifested five senses required life or death combat against equally strong opponents. It made sense. Even people on Earth experienced heightened senses during moments of extreme danger or tension. By pushing oneself into perilous life or death situations, a strong individual who had awakened observation haki could sharpen this manifested sensory perception. But engaging in life or death combat against equally matched opponents, one wrong move, and you could genuinely die. Those who survived were tempered by the experience, their manifested senses grew stronger, forging more powerful observation haki. And even then, natural talent played a role. Some hotheads might be strong but possess poor manifested senses, Emperor Big Mom being a prime example. Truly a brutal survival of the fittest power system. Even the supporting haki, observation, required conditions for improvement even more bloody and harsh than armament haki. No wonder there were many users of armament haki on the seas. Some, like Zephyr Blackarm in his prime, reached admiral level relying solely on armament. But those who could train observation haki to its absolute peak, capable of briefly seeing the future, were so few. Rowen chuckled at the thought. For Rowen, with his strongest trait system, there was another way to improve observation haki, directly upgrading it with materials. Reaching the level of seeing the future was just a matter of time for Rowen. But he wasn't in a rush for that yet. In the first half of the Grand Line, situations requiring ultra-advanced observation haki were rare. Rowen's current priority remained strengthening his physique. Knock knock. As Rowen was contemplating, a soft knock came at his door. Having already awakened observation haki, Rowen knew who was outside even without opening the door, simply by sensing their presence. Click. Opening the door, Rowen offered a gentle smile to the figure standing outside. Come in, Nami. Rowen stepped aside. Did you know I was coming, Rowen? Nami asked, biting her lip upon hearing his words. Of course. I can clearly sense every little change in your emotions, Rowen replied, smiling kindly at Nami. With observation haki, combined with his knowledge of the plot and the groundwork he'd laid over the past few days, predicting Nami would come to him was simple. "Rowen," Nami murmured, biting her lip again, her eyes filled with emotion. "Rowen cares about me that much? Nami. You. Oof." Just as Rowen started to say something more, he felt a warmth press against his chest. Nami had thrown herself into his arms, her shoulders trembling slightly. Rowen gently stroked her orange hair. "You've been through a lot, Nami," Rowen said softly. He could feel a dampness spreading on his chest. Nami bit her lip, then lifted her tear-streaked face. Seeing her like this, looking so vulnerable yet beautiful, tugged at Rowen's heartstrings. Nami, enduring the pain of her mother's murder since she was 10, carrying the burden of her village's safety on her shoulders, striving to earn that exorbitant sum of 100 million berry. 100 million berry. In the East Blue, the highest bounty belonged to Arlong, at a mere 20 million. For a 10-year-old girl, that burden was like an impossibly heavy mountain. Yet Nami, through her own efforts, and notably, through her kindness, choosing only to steal from evil pirates, had nearly accomplished this incredible feat. Nami, truly had suffered immensely. "Rowen. Help me," Nami whispered, her voice choked with emotion. For the first time since her mother Belmere was killed, she allowed herself to show the vulnerability of a young woman in need. Rowen's simple words, "You've been through a lot," had completely broken down her defenses. Rowen gently wiped away Nami's tears. Then, his eyes hardened, filled with a cold fury. He stepped out of the room, his voice booming through the ship in a deafening roar. "Of course." His eyes blazed with chilling intensity. Thump! 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 Lights immediately flickered on in 4 other cabins. Luffy, Zoro, Usopp, and Sanji quickly emerged onto the deck, fully dressed and ready for action. "Nami. Where are we going?" Luffy demanded, rolling up his sleeves, his serious business expression firmly in place. "Just tell us who, Rowen." "We heard your voice." "We're ready to fight," Zoro stated grimly, drawing Wado Ikamanji slightly. "Ha!" Sanji exhaled a stream of smoke, his face set in a cold, determined mask. Usopp said nothing, but his legs, which usually trembled uncontrollably whenever trouble arose, were now perfectly steady. "Nami. Let's go. The ones who hurt you were coming for their lives. We're pirates, after all," Rowen declared, his expression chillingly fierce. This was the first time since arriving in this world that Rowen had felt truly enraged. "Kokoyashi village," Nami whispered, her eyes red but resolute, finally naming the place. "East Blue, Kokoyashi village." This island was the heart of the Arlong Empire, the domain ruled by the pirate Arlong, who carried a 20 million berry bounty. Here, humans were treated as inferior beings, subjected to the violent rule of Arlong and his fishman crew. Within the Arlong Empire, every village was forced to pay tribute based on population, 100,000 berry per adult, 50,000 berry per child. Failure to pay resulted in death. Nami's adoptive mother, Belmere, possessed only 100,000 berry. Choosing to save Nami and her other adopted daughter, Nojiko, Belmere paid for their lives with her own, murdered right before Nami's eyes. Afterwards, Arlong recognized Nami's exceptional talent for navigation and cartography. To force Nami to draw sea charts for them, Arlong made her a promise: if she could gather 100 million berry, he would sell her hometown back to her. And so, at the tender age of 10, Nami began her life as a pirate-robbing thief, continuing until this very day. Aboard the Going Merry, the expressions of Rowen and the crew were grim. Although Rowen already knew the story, hearing it directly from Nami, seeing this beautiful, incredibly strong young woman finally break down sobbing before him. Even the flickering conqueror's haki in Rowen's eyes began to burn with uncontrollable fury. I didn't want to involve you guys. Arlong and his crew are fishmen. Their physical strength is naturally 10 times greater than humans. They're real monsters. I originally planned to handle this myself," Nami choked out between sobs, looking up at Rowen, biting her lip. Even though she had witnessed Rowen's strength these past few days. Even after seeing him defeat Krieg with a single punch. Even after witnessing the incredible clash of conquerors' hockey between Rowen and the legendary world's greatest swordsman, Hawkeye's Mihawk. The psychological scars from her childhood ran too deep. After the initial emotional outburst, Nami still couldn't be absolutely certain that Rowen and the others could defeat Arlong and his crew. After all, the trauma was immense. In Nami's mind, fishmen were the true monsters of the sea, humans were simply no match for such creatures. The reason she hadn't left earlier was because of Rowen's words, telling her to rely on him, that he would risk his life for her. But Nami hadn't intended for Rowen to actually fight for her. She had planned to make some other excuse, just to say a proper goodbye. Nami didn't want to disappoint Rowen, the man who spoke such kind words to her, treated her so gently, protected her throughout their journey. At the very least, they deserved a proper farewell. During the days Rowen spent training Luffy and the others in hockey, Nami had been racking her brain, trying to come up with a plausible excuse to leave gracefully. But Nami knew she was only deceiving herself. She didn't want to leave. She didn't want to leave Rowen. However, during Rowen's hockey training sessions, he had also explained some realities of the Grand Line. Only then did Nami learn that fishmen, creatures she viewed as unbeatable monsters, were actually treated as slaves by humans on the Grand Line. She learned that legendary races far stronger than fishmen, like giants, truly existed on the Grand Line. Yet, even with beings as powerful as giants existing, humans still ultimately dominated the seas. She also learned that before the power of hockey, sheer physical strength meant little. Someone without hockey facing a hockey master, the outcome would be just like Krieg facing Rowen, utterly powerless. This applied even to races like fishmen. And hockey was a power that only became common in the New World, the second half of the Grand Line. It was extremely rare in the Four Blues, even in the first half of the Grand Line. Arlong and his crew did not possess hockey. Finally, when Rowen and the others decided they would head for the Grand Line tomorrow, Nami resolved to tell Rowen the truth. Initially, however, Nami had only intended to share her story, still hoping to resolve the situation with money. But Rowen's gentle understanding, his simple acknowledgement of her suffering, "You've been through a lot," caused years of suppressed grief and pain to finally burst forth. Maybe I should just try to buy the village back with the 100 million berry first. Arlong usually keeps his promises, Nami murmured, trying to regain control, biting her lip as she looked at Rowen. It wasn't Nami's fault her thoughts kept wavering. The psychological trauma had affected her too deeply. Even after her emotional outburst, a part of her still desperately wanted to prevent Rowen from fighting Arlong's fishman crew. "You know that's impossible, right, Nami?" Rowen asked softly, forcibly suppressing his own boiling rage as he looked down at her. "You said yourself, those fishmen rule that area with impunity. For them to operate like that for so many years without attracting serious marine attention. It wouldn't be possible without collaborators within the Marines. The moment you gather the 100 million berry, what's stopping Arlong from having those corrupt Marines confiscate all your money as stolen goods? What could you possibly do then?" Rowen looked at Nami, his eyes filled with sympathy and pain for her plight. This was the great pirate era. Even for a colossal organization like the Marines, resources were stretched thin. Therefore, pirate pursuits were prioritized. Those who committed heinous acts, murder, pillaging, became top targets. This was why many pirates, while engaging in robbery, avoided wanton killing. It attracted too much attention from powerful marine forces. It was the Marines' way of maintaining some semblance of order. The sea was too vast, the pirates too numerous to capture them all. Deterrence was key to minimizing harm to civilians. Someone like Arlong, imposing bloody rule over more than 20 villages like Kokoyashi, if Marine headquarters learned the full details, his operation would undoubtedly be crushed. Therefore, bribing the local Marine branch responsible for that territory was essential to prevent HQ from discovering the truth. That's exactly what happened in the original story. The local Marine branch was bought off by Arlong. Captain Nezumi, the commander of that branch, confiscated all the money Nami had painstakingly saved, allowing Arlong to force Nami to start earning the 100 million berry all over again. It was a cycle designed to be endless. Nami's pupils constricted. That possibility, she hadn't dared to consider it. Or perhaps, she hadn't allowed herself to. Before meeting Rowen, she had no one to rely on. When you have no one, when you stand utterly alone, you cling to any hope, even if it means deceiving yourself. Buying back her hometown from Arlong with 100 million berry was Nami's only hope. If that hope shattered, Nami didn't know what she would do. Nami looked up at Rowen, biting her lip hard. But now, she did have someone to rely on. Nami allowed herself to confront the horrifying possibility Rowen presented. It was entirely plausible. If Arlong really had bought off the Marines, having them seize her money as stolen goods, she would be utterly powerless. Forced to continue drawing charts for Arlong forever, never gaining her freedom. Nami! Stand behind me! Pirates have pirate ways of solving problems, Rowen declared, turning his gaze towards the distant sea, his eyes filled with icy resolve. That's right. Let's go beat up all those fishmen. Luffy yelled furiously. Just cut them all down, right? Zoro stated grimly, his hand resting on Wado Ikemanji. Ha! Sanji exhaled a plume of smoke, his expression dark. Though he respected and blessed Nami's connection with Rowen, they were still comrades. The bastards who caused Miss Nami so much pain. Sanji would uphold his code of chivalry. First step to becoming a brave warrior of the sea. Usopp declared, pulling down his goggles and loading his slingshot with special ammunition. Rowen! Everyone! Nami covered her mouth, trying hard not to cry again. Controlling her trembling body, she stepped behind Rowen, gently resting her forehead against his broad back. She wasn't alone anymore. Set course immediately. Let's show these fishmen what real pirates are. Rowen snarled, his expression utterly ruthless. Ooh. Arlong Park. Here's this month's payment. Take it, Arlong grinned, revealing rows of sharp shark teeth as he looked at the marine officer before him. Arlong was a sawshark fishman, brother Arlong. You're different from other pirates. You really understand how things work. Jaya ha ha ha. Captain Nezumi of the 16th Marine Branch cackled, his eyes gleaming greedily at the pile of berry Arlong pushed towards him. Sha ha ha ha. Likewise. As long as you're willing to be my friend, you'll enjoy endless benefits here in the East Blue. The fact that you understand this proves you're a smart Marine captain. Arlong threw his head back and laughed loudly. Thank you kindly for your continued generosity, Nezumi replied smoothly. Captain Nezumi tucked the money safely into his coat. Sha ha ha ha. No need for formalities now. Harmony brings wealth, after all. Money is a wonderful thing, more trustworthy than anything else. Am I wrong? Arlong grinned, flashing his rows of sharp shark teeth at the Marine captain. Why yes, quite right. Well then, I shall take my leave, Nezumi replied, his eye twitching. Slightly. Dealing with these fishmen always left a bad taste in his mouth, but the money made it tolerable. Now that he had it, he didn't want to stay a second longer. Have a drink before you go. Relax a little, Arlong offered with a wide grin. A patrolling marine warship docked at a pirate's base. It wouldn't look good, no matter how you slice it, Nezumi quickly made an excuse, eager to leave. If anyone reported this to headquarters, I'll kill them, Arlong growled, his expression turning cruel. This Captain Nezumi, though a lowly human, was crucial to his operation. If Marine HQ learned the full details of what he was doing here, they'd likely send powerful forces from headquarters itself. And HQ Marines were on a completely different level than these branch officers. The mere thought of HQ Marines made an old wound ache phantomly, one inflicted by Kizaru, back when he was still a vice admiral, now a full admiral. But as long as this rat was on his payroll, Arlong didn't have to worry about HQ finding out the details. Very well. I'll have my men see you out, Arlong said, watching Nezumi. Boom! Just as Captain Nezumi was about to leave, the main gate of Arlong Park exploded inwards with a deafening roar. Thump! Thump! Several fishmen, already dead, were tossed like garbage out of the dust cloud, landing heavily on the ground. Who dares? Arlong roared, veins bulging on his forehead. How dare they harm his precious brethren? Don't worry. You're next, Arlong, a cold voice declared as the dust settled, revealing several figures standing before Arlong and his crew. Rowen stared icily at Arlong. Nami? What do you think you're doing? Arlong bellowed, his eyes bloodshot with rage upon seeing Nami among the intruders. It's true. Just like Rowen said, you really are colluding with the Marines, Arlong. Is that why the government lets you run wild here? Nami screamed, trembling uncontrollably as she stared at the still-present Captain Nezumi. It was exactly as Rowen had said. If she hadn't met Rowen, if she had hopefully gathered that 100 million berry, only to have it stolen by these corrupt Marines. Imagining that scenario. Nami bit her lip so hard it nearly drew blood, her eyes burning with absolute hatred. Ah, Captain Nezumi? He's our friend, Nami. Which makes him your friend too. Just keep drawing those maps nicely for me, and we can forget this little incident ever happened, Arlong sneered, then turned his murderous gaze towards Rowen and the others. As for you lot, laying a hand on my precious brethren, you'll all die right here. Arlong snarled, his expression utterly ruthless. Arlong suddenly sensed something was wrong. He looked over at Captain Nezumi. Nezumi looked like he had seen a ghost, utterly terrified, trembling violently. SK Sky Sovereign Rowen? Nezumi squeaked, recognizing the name Nami had shouted. Just seeing the person, he might not have recognized him. But hearing the name Rowen spoken by Nami, and then seeing the man himself, Captain Nezumi immediately knew who it was. The super rookie who had emerged from the East Blue, causing a significant stir even at Marine HQ, Sky Sovereign Rowen. Sky Sovereign Rowen? So that's you? Arlong whipped his head towards Rowen, cold sweat suddenly breaking out on his own brow. To maintain his dominion, Arlong needed to stay informed about major events on the seas. News from the East Blue was naturally a top priority. And the most talked about news in the East Blue recently? It was the super rookie whose fame already surpassed even pirate hunter Rowen Ozaro. Sky Sovereign Rowen. User of Conqueror's Hockey. As a former member of the Sun Pirates, Arlong knew exactly what possessing Conqueror's Hockey meant. It was the power that even Kizaru, the admiral who had scarred him, didn't possess. Why had Arlong come to the East Blue in the first place? Precisely because it was the weakest sea, making it easier to rule. Users of Conqueror's Hockey, even on the Grand Line, were all powerhouses capable of carving out their own territories. Hey, Nami. Don't look so scary. I told you, once you save up 100 million berry, I'll sell the village back to you, Arlong forced a smile, turning back to Nami. Damn it. How did this little brat Nami get involved with someone possessing Conqueror's Hockey? And then, have this Marine confiscate all my money as stolen goods? Nami spat, seeing right through Arlong's sudden change in attitude. It confirmed everything Rowen had said was true. Just hearing Rowen's name was enough to make Arlong shift his stance so drastically? Even after his precious brethren were killed, Arlong could still force that expression? Compared to Rowen, maybe Arlong wasn't such a monster after all. Hearing Nami's direct accusation, Arlong's forced smile froze on his face. Nami instantly caught the flicker of confirmation in his eyes. Just as I thought, Arlong. Nami snarled, grinding her teeth, her beautiful eyes turning blood-red with fury. Arlong really had intended to betray her. Hey! I never said anything like. Arlong started to deny it, but his pupils suddenly constricted. Whoosh! Clang! Accompanied by a sharp, metallic sound, a dense, jet-black fist appeared directly before Arlong's eyes. Arlong's eyes widened in shock. Crack! With a sickening crunch that set teeth on edge, Arlong was slammed violently into the wall behind him. Under the stunned gazes of the other fishmen, the structure of Arlong Park crumbled under the terrifying force. Arlong San, the other fishmen cried out in horror. Captain Nezumi completely lost his nerve, paralyzed by fear. We didn't come here to listen to your bullshit. So, Arlong, how do you want to die? Rowen stated coldly, watching Arlong struggle to pull himself from the rubble. Rowen didn't even bother using Conqueror's Hockey. Nami's suffering, he would make these fishmen pay for it, piece by agonizing piece. Hockey? Arlong's pride and joy, his rows of sharp shark teeth, had been completely shattered by Rowen's single punch. Staring at the dense black coating covering Rowen's fist, Arlong's eyes filled with utter terror. Arlong stared at Rowen, his eyes filled with pure terror. As a former member of the Sun Pirates, who had even been captured by Kizaru and imprisoned and impelled down, Arlong certainly knew what that power was: armament hockey. A power rarely seen even in the first half of the Grand Line. And it was terrifyingly strong. Arlong felt the searing pain racking his body, his eyes bloodshot. A single blow, and Arlong knew he was severely injured. His head felt fuzzy, consciousness blurring from the impact. Shaking his head violently to clear his vision, Arlong opened his mouth wide. The shark teeth shattered by Rowen's punch instantly regenerated. As a sawshark fishman, even if his teeth were destroyed, they would endlessly grow back. Big bro Arlong! Several of Arlong's top officers rushed forward. Wait! Arlong barked, stopping them. From that single punch, Arlong knew he had no chance of winning. He had once been arrogant, believing in his own superiority. But ever since Kizaru easily inflicted grievous wounds on him with the glint fruit's power, leaving him feeling utterly helpless, Arlong learned a harsh lesson: never provoke the true powerhouses who sit atop the hierarchy of the seas. That was suicide. Facing a user of Conqueror's Haki who also possessed such formidable armament Haki, Arlong knew he had zero chance. Sky Sovereign Rowen, no need to be so angry, right? Harmony brings wealth. As pirates, isn't money what we're really after? How about this? We can cooperate. The tribute from these territories, we can split it. And of course, Nami's hometown won't have to pay tribute anymore. How about it? Arlong struggled to control his dislocated jaw, forcing a smile. Nami stared at Arlong, finding the scene surreal. His brethren killed, Arlong himself brutally beaten by Rowen, yet here he was, practically groveling, trying to negotiate peace with Rowen. Begging for terms from a human, a member of the race he constantly proclaimed as inferior to fishmen. Nami looked at Rowen standing protectively before her, tears streaming down her cheeks. Years of suffering and anguish, finally, release was at hand. Money? Rowen's voice was laced with icy contempt. How about it? Isn't it a good proposal? With your Conqueror's Haki, we can definitely rule the entire East Blue. Arlong pressed desperately. Wham! Crunch! Bloody spittle, mixed with shattered shark teeth, sprayed through the air. Ugh! Guh! Arlong's head snapped back from another devastating Haki-infused blow, his consciousness threatening to fade entirely, his vision blurring. You dare speak to me about what it means to be a pirate? I'll make your body remember what a real pirate is, Rowen snarled, glaring down at Arlong struggling weakly at his feet. Big bro! The remaining fishman officers charged forward again. Stay out of this. Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji instantly intercepted them, easily dispatching the lower-level fishmen and engaging Arlong's top officers. Usopp, too, loaded his slingshot with special ammo, roaring defiantly as he attacked the remaining fishmen. Regenerate your teeth quickly, you half-fish trash, Rowen commanded coldly, grabbing Arlong's head and lifting him up. His chilling gaze sent a wave of terror through Arlong's muddled brain. D-damn you! Even a cornered rabbit will bite. Humiliated beyond endurance, Arlong instantly regrew his teeth and lunged, snapping his shark jaws at Rowen. Crack! His shark teeth shattered once more. Even his iconic serrated nose, the pride of his sawshark heritage, was brutally twisted and broken by the force of Rowen's punch. Regenerate again, Rowen's voice was devoid of warmth, utterly chilling. Arlong wanted to scream, but speaking required regenerating his teeth, and the moment he did. Crunch! Crack! More blood and broken teeth flew. Keep going. Regenerate. This pain is nothing compared to what Nami suffered. Rowen's glare terrified Arlong to his core. He was suddenly reminded of that feeling when facing Kizaru. That sense of utter helplessness, like an infant unable to resist. Arlong didn't dare regenerate his proud shark teeth anymore. The moment he did, another hockey-coated fist would smash into him. Wham! But the next moment, the jet-black fist slammed into his jaw instead. Crack! With a clear sound of bone shattering, Arlong's eyes rolled white. The force of the blow lifted him bodily into the air. His jaw was broken. His mind completely fogged over. Slap! Rowen's blackened hand caught Arlong's head, holding him up. Still not enough, trash. Don't tell me you're this fragile, Rowen sneered, his smile utterly devoid of warmth. Arlong was a pitiful sight. Jaw shattered, teeth unable to regenerate, iconic nose broken and twisted, his entire face was a mask of blood. Open your eyes. Watch carefully, Rowen commanded, forcing Arlong's head down towards the remaining structures of Arlong Park. Inside one of those buildings was the mapping room where Nami had been forced to draw maps for Arlong's crew, a place filled with her painful memories. Something like that has no right to exist. A tyrannical crimson-black light flared in Rowen's eyes. Boom! Unleashing his hockey without reservation, Rowen poured it out. With a tremendous explosion, the mapping building collapsed into dust and rubble. Boom! 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 Rowen moved like a blur, his hockey-infused fists raining down relentlessly. The base Arlong had painstakingly built, the entirety of Arlong Park, crumbled building by building, reduced to ruins. Arlong tried to struggle, to rise, but it was useless. The hockey-powered blows had left his consciousness reeling, he couldn't control his own body. All Arlong could do was writhe helplessly on the ground, watching his life's work turn to dust. Rowen! Nami whispered, covering her mouth as she watched. Though Rowen hadn't said anything, she understood his intention. Rowen was destroying every physical reminder of her suffering. Crash! With a final, deafening boom, the last standing structure of Arlong Park collapsed into rubble. Luffy and the others' battles had also concluded. Arlong's three top officers, Chu, the kissing fishman, Hachi, the octopus fishman, and Koby, the ray fishman, were all defeated. The remaining fishman grunts lay scattered and silent across the ground. Where do you think you're going? Rowen asked coldly, grabbing the terrified Captain Nezumi and throwing him down in front of the broken Arlong. Rowen adopted his villain expression. I am a Marine captain. What are you doing? I represent the Marines. The government. Nezumi stammered, looking fearfully at Rowen. Arlong, the monster, was like a helpless infant before the Sky Sovereign Rowen. Monster! This man, he was the real monster. Did you misunderstand something? I am a pirate, Rowen replied, his smile turning chillingly predatory. Crack! In Nezumi's terrified gaze, Rowen's armament hockey-coated foot lashed out, striking him hard. Accompanied by the sickening sound of multiple bone fractures, an overwhelming wave of agony washed over Nezumi. Every bone in his body shattered under that single kick. Then, his eyes rolled white, and he fell silent, lifeless. Fueled by righteous fury, Rowen's kick had instantly killed the corrupt Marine captain through catastrophic internal injuries and shattered bones. Ha! Rowen exhaled sharply, the burning rage finally beginning to subside. He turned towards Nami, his expression softening into the warm, sun-like smile she recognized. It's okay now, Nami. Nami's nose stung. She rushed forward, throwing herself into Rowen's embrace. I am not going to thank you, Nami choked out, her voice muffled against Rowen's chest. Rowen replied softly, gently stroking her hair. Because, you said, actions speak louder than words. Nami lifted her tear-streaked face, looking up at Rowen, remembering his words back in Orange Town. Standing on her tiptoes, Nami pressed a warm kiss onto Rowen's cheek. MNPH Sanji watched, filled with immense envy. He lit a cigarette, but his eyes held only sincere blessings for Rowen and Nami. Shi. Now we can go to the Grand Line. Luffy cheered, oblivious to the tender moment. Thump! 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 Just then, the sound of many running footsteps approached. Nami turned towards the sound, seeing Nojiko and Genzo leading a group of armed villagers, all staring dumbfounded at the scene. Nami's face instantly flushed crimson. She scrambled out of Rowen's arms. And Nojiko. Gen-san. Everyone. Why are you all here? Nami stammered, looking at the villagers from Kokoyashi. We heard you came back with comrades to fight Arlong's crew. We rushed over immediately. Nami, what happened here? Genzo started to ask about Rowen's group, but the devastation of Arlong Park left him speechless. All the fishmen were down, silent. Arlong, the unbeatable tyrant, lay on the ground like a broken dog, face bloody and completely disfigured. Why you don't blame me? Nami asked hesitantly, looking at Genzo and the concerned expressions of the villagers, biting her lip. Nami had thought the villagers didn't know about her deal with Arlong. We've known all along, Nami, Genzo said, taking a deep breath as he looked at Nami's stunned face. We knew you were fighting for us. We knew about the promise to earn 100 million berry. We just didn't want you to feel burdened by our expectations when you finally decided you wanted to escape Arlong's crew. That would have been too heavy for you. You deserve to live freely, Nami, Genzo finished, his eyes filled with paternal pain and love. He considered Nami and Nojiko his daughters. Seeing his daughter suffer so much, he blamed himself for being useless. But at the very least, he didn't want to be a burden to her. Genzo's words, combined with the villagers' caring gazes, made Nami's eyes well up again. Nami, aren't you going to introduce us? Nojiko asked, her gaze shifting towards Rowen. She had seen Nami in his arms earlier. Rowen introduced himself with a smile. Luffy. Nami's comrade. Luffy yelled cheerfully. Zoro. Sanji. Usopp. The others introduced themselves in turn. They're my comrades. They're the pirates who defeated Arlong's crew, Nami announced, her smile radiant, utterly genuine. Pirates? Hearing that sensitive word, Nojiko, Genzo, and the villagers stared in shock. Then, they looked at each other, and suddenly turned towards Rowen and the crew. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you so much. Nojiko, Genzo, and the villagers burst out, their eyes filling with tears of gratitude. To see Nami smile so happily while calling herself a pirate's comrade. Nami's burden had finally been lifted. Nothing could make them happier than this. Nami deserved to smile like that. To live freely. One last thing, Rowen turned, looking down at Arlong. VMM. Rowen's eyes narrowed intensely. A terrifying wave of pressure washed over Arlong's broken body. Arlong, who had been weakly stirring, instantly went limp, his eyes rolling white as he fell completely unconscious. Conqueror's Haki. Was the final terrified thought that echoed in Arlong's fading consciousness? Plunder. Swoosh. 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 Several purple lights flew from the bodies of Arlong and his three main officers, absorbed by Rowen. Convert. Rowen commanded without even looking at the specific fishman traits. They were useless to him, better to convert them immediately. Arlong's traits converted into 3 base deep purple upgrade materials. The other 3 officers combined yielded the equivalent of 2 base deep purple upgrade materials. Even though Hachi had connections to Rayleigh, Rowen still took his power. While Hachi might not have directly participated in killing villagers, he was still complicit. Actions have consequences. Sparing his life was already a concession, considering Hachi's less evil nature and Rowen's future need for Rayleigh's favor. But showing face didn't mean condoning wrongdoing. Rowen was a king too. Hachi being stripped of his power was unavoidable. In total, Arlong and his 3 officers yielded 5 deep purple upgrade materials for Rowen. The remaining fishman grunts only had blue traits, useless to Rowen. The upgrade materials needed to evolve superhuman demonic physique, deep purple, to apex purple, were now sufficient. Gurgle. Under the disbelieving eyes of the villagers. Arlong and the other fishmen, known for their terrifying Piscine strength, suddenly convulsed. All their muscles seemed to ripple and shrink, leaving them looking like deflated balloons, utterly powerless. "Wake him up, Usopp," Rowen instructed, knowing Usopp excelled at this. "Leave it to me," Usopp declared confidently, puffing out his chest. Under Usopp's gentle ministrations, Arlong slowly regained consciousness. "NGH. Ugh." Arlong looked fearfully at Rowen. But then, Arlong froze. His pupils constricted violently. Absolute terror flooded his being. His strength? His instincts as a proud Sashark fishman? Arlong tried to regenerate his teeth, but he couldn't. The ability was gone. "I hear you believe fishmen, who can breathe underwater, are inherently superior to humans? A noble race, was it?" Rowen asked, looking down at Arlong with a chilling smile. That smile looked utterly terrifying to Arlong now. "Kick!" Rowen kicked Arlong hard, sending him flying into the channel connecting Arlong Park to the open sea. As the headquarters for fishmen, Arlong Park had a dedicated waterway linking it to the ocean. Splash! An unbelievable sight occurred. Arlong, a fishman, upon entering the water, began to sink. Cannot breathe. Kicked into the sea, Arlong felt an indescribable primal terror grip him. As a fishman, breathing freely underwater, swimming effortlessly, these were the core tenets he used to justify fishman's superiority over humans. But now he couldn't breathe underwater. What did that man do to him? Arlong didn't have time to figure it out. The agony of suffocation overwhelmed him. Amidst the absolute terror, his consciousness faded. Then, plunged into darkness. Poof! Rowen smirked faintly. Drowning. A truly fitting end for scum like Arlong. Stripped by Rowen of everything defining him as a Sashark fishman, not just his strength and physique, but even his gills shriveled and vanished. His ability to swim was also plundered. Arlong could no longer breathe or swim in the sea. He drowned helpless in the very ocean he claimed as his birthright. Whoosh! The clouds overhead suddenly parted. Warm sunlight streamed down onto the ruins of Arlong Park. But this light, falling upon the devastated landscape, felt full of hope to the people of Kokoyasi village. The sky had cleared. Nami a keepable trait list updated. Selecting climate sense, pale gold, for equipping. Equipping complete. A notification screen, visible only to Rowen, appeared. Rowen and Nami's bond was already at maximum. Climate sense, pale gold, equipped instantly. Kokoyasi village, once bleak under the oppressive rule of the Arlong pirates, was now bursting with life and celebration. The villagers brought out all the food and drink they could find, their faces radiating genuine joy as they threw a massive feast. Because the pirates who had violently ruled over them, Arlong and his crew, had been utterly defeated. All the fishmen who had followed Arlong and his tyranny were dealt with. Those thrown into the sea, stripped of their fishman traits by Rowen, could only drown helplessly. These fishmen, who had believed Arlong's doctrine that their ability to breathe underwater made them inherently superior to humans, ultimately suffocated to death in the very sea they claimed as their birthright. A few, like Hachi, who hadn't directly participated in the killing and oppression of humans, and had sometimes even restrained Arlong's murderous rampages, were spared. After discussion among the Kokoyasi villagers, Rowen allowed them to retain their ability to breathe underwater and let them go. Arlong's nature was extremely cruel. He viewed humans as inferior beings and wouldn't hesitate to massacre entire villages. These few less culpable fishmen, whether motivated by preserving their source of tribute or by a sliver of inherent decency, had ultimately prevented many more deaths. The villagers of Kokoyasi, having regained their freedom, wanted nothing more than for Nami, who had carried their hopes for so many years, to be happy and free. They didn't want her kind heart tainted by excessive bloodshed. Nami shouldn't have to carry any more burdens for their sake. From now on, Nami should live for herself, freely upon the sea. Rowen naturally respected this decision. Nami just needed to live happily and freely from now on. Watching Rowen and his crew enjoying the feast, the eyes of every Kokoyasi villager shone with gratitude. Shishishi. Parties are the best. Luffy cheered, his mouth stuffed full, grinning widely. Rowen, eat up. And tell me more about you and Nami. Nojiko teased, sliding a glass of tangerine wine towards Rowen, eyeing him and Nami with a mischievous grin. Nojiko. Nami's face flushed scarlet. Alright. I won't ask. Nojiko laughed, even more amused by Nami's reaction. Some things didn't need to be said to be understood. Nami, forced by her childhood experiences to shoulder everything herself, rarely showed such shy vulnerability. Looks like Nami really likes this Rowen guy. Nojiko smiled, reassured. For Nami, who had endured such suffering and hated pirates to her core, to happily declare Rowen's crew were comrades. Entrusting Nami to Rowen felt right. Here it comes. Sea King meat. The highlight of today's feast arrived, Momu, the Sea King kept by Arlong's crew, expertly prepared by Sanji. This Sea King had often been used by Arlong's crew to plow through villages that resisted their rule. Rowen certainly wasn't going to let it go to waste. He had it butchered immediately for the feast. Sea King meat was a rare delicacy in the East Blue. Finally, Rowen's interest was immediately piqued. Sea Kings, unique and powerful creatures of the One Piece world. The power of Poseidon, one of the three ancient weapons, was the ability to command all Sea Kings, allegedly capable of destroying the world. In the deep sea, there existed colossal Sea Kings exceeding 5,000 meters in length. A coordinated assault by such creatures could generate terrifying tsunamis. The Sea Kings in the East Blue were much smaller, but still enormous compared to most other creatures. This tastes amazing. The freshness of the ingredients, the texture, both perfectly brought out. As expected of you, Sanji. You can make any ingredient taste delicious, Rowen exclaimed after tossing a large piece of sea beast meat into his mouth. The flavor was wonderfully unique. It had the texture of beef, yet the delicate freshness of fish. Combined with Sanji's culinary skill, the inherent deliciousness and texture of the sea beast meat were elevated to their absolute peak. With a cook like Sanji around, eating Sea King was truly the ultimate indulgence. Of course, for Rowen, the abundant nutrients within the Sea King meat were even more crucial. Naturally, Sanji smirked, pleased. Finally, someone who speaks my language. Rowen's praise for his cooking was spot on, it felt like talking to a kindred spirit. Rowen, noticing a slight increase in the equipping progress for the modified exoskeleton trait, smiled inwardly as well. As expected of a Sea King from the One Piece world. Incredibly nutritious. Rowen focused, using his superhuman demonic physique, deep purple, to rapidly digest the nutrients from the sea beast meat, feeling his physique strengthen, his lips curling upwards. The reason humans in the One Piece world could achieve such incredible physical strength stemmed from the immense nutritional value found in the world's meat. And the nutrients within Sea Kings were even more exaggerated. No wonder the top-tier powerhouses could train their bodies to such ridiculous levels, capable of fighting for days on end using their abilities in haki. Enhance. With such nutrient-rich sea beast meat available, Rowen didn't need to worry about insufficient fuel. He issued the command internally. Enhance superhuman demonic physique, deep purple. Enhancement successful. Trait tier advanced. Promoted to apex purple tier. A notification screen, visible only to Rowen, appeared. A wave of hunger, even greater than the last enhancement, washed over him. But with plenty of sea beast meat remaining, it wasn't an issue. As Rowen resumed eating heartily, the depleted stamina reserves were quickly refilled. Once sated, feeling the surge of power and stamina flooding his body, Rowen smirked again. Of course, with his superhuman demonic physique advancing to the apex purple tier, under the influence of Born of the Sea, Apex Gold, Rowen's armament haki grew stronger as well. It remained at the apex purple tier for now, however. To advance armament haki to the pale gold tier, minimum vice admiral combat threshold, his physique also needed to reach the pale gold tier. Of course, for others, even reaching pale gold physique required diligent training to elevate their armament haki accordingly. But for Rowen, possessing both Awakened Conqueror's haki and the Born of the Sea cheat code, as soon as his physique reached pale gold, his armament haki would automatically advance. The hockey training cheat code truly lives up to its name. Although it hadn't reached pale gold yet, Rowen's current armament hockey intensity was more than sufficient. Sufficient to take Smoker's Logiotype smoke fruit. Rowen's lips curled slightly. While the smoke fruit wasn't strong among Logias, obtaining his first devil fruit ability, Rowen felt a surge of anticipation. Rowen, try this. Nami carefully offered Rowen a tangerine, her face filled with hopeful expectation, interrupting his thoughts. These must be from Belmir's Tangerine Grove. Rowen took the fruit Nami offered, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. He peeled the tangerine, carefully placed a segment in his mouth, and chewed slowly. Delicious. This is the best tangerine I've ever eaten, Rowen said, smiling genuinely, looking fondly at Nami. This tangerine held Nami's longing for her adoptive mother, Belmir. It held the strength of a young woman who, even after witnessing her mother's murder, shouldered the hope of her entire village, determined to buy back their home from Arlong. It also held Nami's heart. Rowen didn't need Nami to say anything, he understood her feelings. And Nami, naturally, didn't need Rowen to elaborate, she understood the meaning behind his words, her eyes curving into smiling crescents. Today was the happiest day she had experienced since Belmir died. Rowen! Nami! Look! Luffy suddenly yelled indistinctly through a mouthful of food. Nami and Rowen turned towards the sound. How's this? Yasaku taught us. The nostril chopstick dance. Shishishi. Luffy and Usopp had their arms slung around each other's shoulders, laughing indistinctly. 2 chopsticks were stuck firmly up their nostrils, the other ends dangling near their mouths. Pft, ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. Seeing the utterly ridiculous sight, Nami couldn't hold back. Her lips quivered, then she burst into unrestrained laughter, tears streaming down her face. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. That's great, pirate fellas. Keep it going. Keep it going. The villagers of Kokoyashi, seeing Luffy and Usopp's performance, also erupted in laughter, tears of mirth streaming down their faces. It wasn't just laughter at the comical dance, it was the joyous release after years of suffering finally coming to an end. How about this? Swept up in the festive atmosphere, Luffy and Usopp jumped onto a table, arms still around each other, performing a nonsensical dance that, combined with the nostril chopsticks, looked utterly hilarious. Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. Joyful laughter filled the air. Ha ha ha. You 2 idiots. What are you doing? Zoro laughed heartily, holding his cup of sake. Ha ha ha. Even Sanji couldn't help but laugh. Rowen chuckled, clapping along, thoroughly amused. This was a pirate victory feast. Feasts were meant to be joyous. After much revelry, Zoro's wounds started bleeding again from overexertion. Rowen unceremoniously dumped him at the village clinic for treatment. Honestly. Fighting with such severe injuries, then partying instead of getting treatment immediately. If your wounds hadn't reopened from messing around too much, were you planning on never seeing a doctor? Don't you have a doctor on your ship? The village's best doctor, Neko, grumbled as he stitched up the wound Mihawk had inflicted on Zoro. It's just a scratch. Eating and drinking plenty fixes everything. Zoro retorted stubbornly through gritted teeth, despite the cold sweat beading on his forehead. Ship's doctor? Sounds good. But we need to find a musician first. Luffy poked his head through the doorway, holding several pieces of meat, grinning cheerfully. Why? Hearing his unreliable captain, Zoro, already enduring the pain of stitches, felt his eye twitch violently. Because pirates need to sing. Luffy declared with unwavering conviction. I meant, why do we need a musician first, you idiot? Zoro roared. A doctor is obviously more important than a musician. Shishishi. We'll just let Rowen decide the order later. According to Rowen, we need a doctor and a musician. Luffy grinned happily. The village feast continued, but on a quiet hillside nearby, Nami knelt before a grave marker, her hands clasped together. Do you think Belmir would approve if she knew I decided to become a pirate? Nami murmured, looking up at the blue sky, almost feeling Belmir watching over her. Not far behind her, Genzo and Nojiko stood silently. Of course not. She'd never let her precious daughter become a pirate. Genzo stated bluntly. No, she would, Nojiko countered, smiling softly. Besides, even if she didn't approve, would you actually listen? Nojiko's smile widened. Nami made a playful face, a mischievous grin appearing just like when she was a little girl, misbehaving under Belmir's watchful eye. Ha 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 ha. You two really are Belmir's daughters. Genzo suddenly burst out laughing. Go live life your own way. More than obedience, Belmir wanted you both to be happy, Genzo said, tears welling up in his eyes as he looked at Belmir's grave. Of course. Right now, I'm incredibly happy. Nami declared, standing up and shouting towards the sea. She then turned, looking towards the figure standing a short distance away. Rowen stood there silently, giving her space, yet offering his unwavering presence. Nami knew this was Rowen's way, allowing her time with her family. Rowen! Let's go! Nami called out, her smile radiant. Wait. Can I have a word with you alone, Rowen? Genzo suddenly asked. Of course, Rowen replied with a knowing smile, glancing at Genzo. We'll go on ahead then, Nami said, instinctively covering the Arlong pirate's tattoo on her left arm. Rowen knew she was going to get it removed. Rowen simply nodded, watching warmly as Nami and Nojiko walked away, chatting happily. After Nami was out of sight, Rowen and Genzo stood in silence for a long moment. Genzo's lips moved, struggling to form the words. Please take care of Nami, he finally managed, his voice raspy with emotion, revealing the deep paternal love and concern he held for her. I know you're strong. But if you ever make Nami lose that smile, I don't care where you are. I will find you, and I will kill you. Genzo declared fiercely, tears in his eyes as he glared at Rowen. Rowen said nothing in return. He simply placed his right hand gently on the shoulder of this man, a man covered in scars, who, despite his own weakness, had done everything within his power, like a true father, to protect Nami. Between men, sometimes no words were necessary. A simple gesture was the strongest promise. Genzo wiped the tears from his eyes, a relieved smile finally appearing. He turned and walked back towards the village. Rowen faced Belmir's grave marker, clasped his hands together, closed his eyes, and bowed deeply 3 times. He made a silent promise to the departed Belmir, he would take care of Nami. He would let Nami live freely, happily, upon the sea. Inside Belmir's house, Nami held a sea map, the Arlong tattoo on her left arm now replaced by a design of a pinwheel and a tangerine. Beside her lay a large bundle, nearly 100 million berries saved over the years. The mapping room in Arlong Park, filled with painful memories, had been destroyed by Rowen. Now, only this single map remained in Nami's possession, the very first sea map she had ever drawn, the one Belmir had praised and approved. It's all over, Belmir. It took 8 years, but I finally got my freedom. Everyone else too, they're all laughing genuinely now. It's just like you always said. As long as you keep living, good things will definitely happen. Nami clutched the map tightly, looking around the familiar room, seemingly speaking to Belmir. I'm leaving the island now. Don't worry, everyone is doing well. And there's Rowen this time. I'm going to draw maps for my own dream. I'm going to travel the world with them. With Rowen, that's my dream. Tears welled up in Nami's eyes. So, I don't know when I'll be back on this island. I'm leaving now. Nami wiped away her tears. Leaving the nearly 100 million berry behind for the villagers. She slowly walked out the door. Thump! Just as Nami was about to step outside, she felt a gentle push from behind. Belmir. Nami turned, looking back at the empty room, but her heart felt overflowing with love. I'm off, Nami declared, her smile brilliant and full of hope. Be careful out there. Belmir's photograph seemed to watch Nami's retreating figure. In the photo, Belmir's smile was radiant. At the harbor, the villagers were helping Rowen's crew load supplies onto the Going Merry, enough for their upcoming voyage. They also carefully transplanted Belmir's tangerine trees onto the ship's deck. Everything should be ready now, right? Rowen asked, looking towards Sanji. Yeah, nutritional needs are covered, Sanji confirmed. Ensuring his comrades were well nourished during their journey was his duty. With Rowen now on board, a big eater whose appetite surpassed even Luffy's, Sanji had prepared even more ingredients than usual. But Sanji didn't find it troublesome at all. Instead, he meticulously planned Rowen's nutritional balance. Because having Rowen taste his cooking was truly a pleasure. The moss head, Zoro, needless to say, never offered compliments. Luffy just stuffed his face, occasionally yelling delicious. Usopp would offer more words, but his ingrained habit of exaggeration made his praise often over the top and off point. Only Rowen could provide insightful, detailed critiques of his dishes, appreciating the nuances of appearance, aroma, and taste. Every comment hit precisely on the aspects Sanji was most proud of. For a chef who considered cooking his life, that kind of feedback was incredibly gratifying. By the way, where's Nami? Usopp asked curiously, looking around for her. She'll be here soon. Nami has her own way of saying goodbye, Rowen replied with a knowing smile. What? Nami's leaving without taking the money? Down below, Genzo stared wide-eyed after hearing from Nojiko that Nami intended to leave her savings behind. That's not right. Nami worked desperately hard for that money. Neko, the village doctor who had treated Zoro, exclaimed. She said she can always steal more. You know Nami, once she decides something, she doesn't change her mind, Nojiko sighed helplessly. Nami loved money because it represented hope for saving her hometown. But more than money, Nami loved her family. That fool girl. We're the ones who should be endlessly grateful to her, Genzo murmured, filled with guilt. They hadn't been able to help much, letting Nami shoulder everything. Trying to fight themselves would have only worried Nami and gone against her wishes. But this money, how could they possibly keep it? Tap. Tap. Just then, footsteps approached. She's here, Rowen said, looking towards Nami. Nami. Hearing the footsteps, all the Kokoyashi villagers turned towards her. Set sail. Now. Nami yelled, keeping her head down, avoiding looking directly at the villagers. She then suddenly broke into a sprint towards the Going Merry. What's going on? Why is Nami running? Usopp asked, bewildered. The navigator gave the order. Of course, we set sail. On this ship, Nami calls the shots when it comes to navigation, Rowen chuckled. That's right. Luffy yelled in agreement. Zoro immediately raised the anchor. Usopp and Sanji quickly took their positions. That girl. Is she really leaving without letting us thank her or say goodbye properly? Genzo, who had watched Nami grow up, instantly understood her intention. How could she, the villagers exclaimed, shocked. They had wanted to properly thank Nami, to give her a proper farewell. Hoist the mainsail. Luffy yelled. The merry sail unfurled, and the ship began pulling away from the dock. The villagers rushed forward, trying to stop Nami. Wait. At least let us thank you properly before you go, one man pleaded, trying to block her path. Nami. I won't allow you to just leave us like this. Genzo shouted towards her. Rowen, is it really okay for Nami to leave like this? Sanji asked, looking towards Rowen. What does it matter? Nami is free now, Rowen replied, watching Nami run with a smile. The next moment, Nami darted into the crowd of villagers. Utilizing her pirate thief, blue agility, she expertly weaved through them. The villagers couldn't stop her. Tap. Nami burst through the crowd and leaped towards the Going Merry, already drifting away from the dock. Nami! Nojiko cried out worriedly, watching Nami's risky jump. But the next moment, Nojiko relaxed. Honestly, so reckless, Rowen sighed fondly, standing at the deck railing with open arms. He easily caught Nami as she landed. Well, you said I was free, Nami grinned up at Rowen, then pulled away from his embrace, turning back to face the villagers on the dock. Russell! Nami gave her clothes a little shake, and countless wallets tumbled out onto the deck. Everyone! Take care! Nami called out, holding up a wad of berry notes she'd lifted, turning back to the villagers with a mischievous grin. Ah! Our wallets! What nerve, kid! You little thief cat! The villagers exclaimed, discovering their missing wallets. But their shouts quickly turned into "Take care, Nami! Be happy, Nami! Thank you all so much!" Nami smiled brightly. Yes, this was the perfect farewell for her. Everyone! Goodbye! I'm off, Nami beamed, her eyes curving into happy crescents as she waved enthusiastically at the villagers. I swear, my sister really is something else. Be happy, okay? Nojiko chuckled, completely endeared. Ah, Genzo laughed, sitting down heavily. Seeing Nami smile like that, truly happy. Genzo smiled too. Be happy, Nami. Marine Headquarters. Marine Ford. Here gathered the most elite Marines in the world. Marine Headquarters, the 7 warlords of the sea, and the 4 emperors, these formed the 3 great powers maintaining the current balance of the world. Marine HQ, alongside the 7 warlords, nominally under the world government, stood against the pirate forces led primarily by the 4 emperors. However, with the emperors largely confined to their territories, Marine HQ undoubtedly represented the single strongest individual faction. Inside a conference room, 3 wanted posters were pinned to a large bulletin board. Lining both sides of the room sat rows of Marine HQ officers. Each bore the scars of countless battles against pirates. Unlike branch officers, HQ Marines faced the threats of the Grand Line, even the emperors of the New World. These officers were on a completely different level. An aura of fierce determination filled the room. So, this group is now beyond the capabilities of a mere branch office, correct? Vice Admiral Yamakaji stated gravely. Correct, Marine HQ Commodore Brand New confirmed, pointing at the board. Ever since they formed their crew, starting with the defeat of Branch Captain Morgan, their momentum has been unstoppable. Clown Buggy, 15 million berry bounty. Pirate Fleet Admiral, Don Krieg, 17 million berry bounty. Fishman Pirates, Sawtooth Arlon, 20 million berry. Brand New indicated the posters. In the East Blue, where the average bounty is only 3 million berry, these were all major pirates exceeding 10 million. Yet, this crew defeated them all, Brand New declared loudly. And especially Thwack! A new wanted poster was slapped onto the board. Previously reported by the World Economic News Agency, already gaining immense notoriety. The user of Conqueror's Hockey. Before defeating Don Krieg, this man even clashed his Conqueror's Hockey against the warlord of the sea, Hawkeye's Myhawk. This man's power can no longer be ignored. Brand New stated grimly. Conqueror's Hockey. The Marine officers present tensed, their expressions turning incredibly serious. Sweat beaded on the foreheads of some. That was the disposition of a king, a power not even their 3 strongest fighters, the Marine admirals, possessed. Anyone who awakened it inevitably became a major power player on the Grand Line. There was previous debate regarding this man's bounty. But this time, considering his powers demonstrated by clashing hockey with Hawkeye's Myhawk, and his heinous act of killing Marine Captain Nezumi of the East Blue 16th Branch, we have decided on this bounty amount. For an initial bounty to reach this figure is unprecedented. However, based on our assessment, this number is absolutely not inflated. Such a terrifyingly evil sprout must be extinguished as quickly as possible, Brand New concluded, pointing at the bounty figure. Absolutely correct, Vice Admiral Yamakaji, who had come specifically for this meeting, affirmed. Vice Admiral Enigumo? Your thoughts? Yamakaji looked across at Enigumo. Yamakaji represented the Dove faction within the Marines, while Enigumo represented the Hawk faction. A decision regarding the bounty of a super rookie possessing Conqueror's Hockey required consensus from vice admirals of both factions. No objections. This dangerous individual must be extinguished swiftly, Enigumo, his face grim, nodded slowly. If not for certain considerations, he would have personally hunted down this evil seed himself. Then, the bounty amount is confirmed. Announce it to the world. Sky Sovereign Rowen. Dead or alive? Bounty, 100 million berry. Brand new declared loudly. Furthermore, the captain acknowledged by this man, captain of the Straw Hat Pirates, user of the Goma Goma fruit, Straw Hat Monkey D. Luffy. Bounty, 45 million berry. Inform the world. Let this evil flame be extinguished quickly. That's it for today. Meet you in next part.